Zema Zermus thing, just because if you do not have enough HP and some very specific abilities to deal with some very specific factors he's got going on, he will team wipe you in an instant.
Yes, he is surprisingly no joke. You'd think he is probably one of the hardest. He is right up there with like Kefka. He is not a Zeroma's kind of pushover. Neo X-Death does not play around. And we can see everybody is off to the start. You'll see probably most people do the pretty standard same checks for everybody, where we both see hxcjedders and Dry going into Tycoon Castle. There's quite a few checks or item chests that are in here that you kind of always want to pick up. The other thing
I did find it kind of funny that they actually took different paths, though. One went to the right first, one went to the left first.
Yeah, it's always kind of funny.
Different, but it's a little weird preference thing.
Exactly. And the other thing that they're going to want to pick up in here, and that this Dryalizer, because it has so many checks, that is very, very amazing that they added in, is it has a hint system, very similar to like what a Legend Zooter does or Ocarina of Time does. So they'll actually be able to get different hints, like this is somewhere to go check, this is not somewhere to go check.
Yeah, so you can see that on Jedder's screen right there. He actually just went and talked to somebody in the throne room, and it told him that a certain location was on the path to the void. Now, what that means is that it either contains a tablet in and of itself, or it contains one of the key items to unlock one of the locations where a tablet is located. Those are really vital to getting your runtime down here in Career Day, because if you do not take those hints, you're going to be wandering usually an extra half hour, 45 minutes at least.
Yes, this randomizer definitely does have some rabbit holes that you can end up going down. Now, we do see the starting job for everybody is Monk tonight, and Monk is kind of considered one of the weaker jobs. It does have Brawl, which makes it okay in the beginning if you can't find anything good, but most of the time, with how many free checks in the Sealed Cave, you can find a good starting weapon to go out start off with.
Yeah, as a job, Monk also definitely is one of the jobs more wounded by Career Day as well, because one of the things about Career Day, and it is toggleable in-game, but random encounters by default are off. Now, Monk, one of its strengths is early on in the game, very early levels, very early parts of the game, it can be pretty useful for grinding, just because, again, it does pretty okay damage and has a pretty early all enemies hit unlock for lesser damage, but still pretty good for wiping groups of small mobs. But in Career Day, that's usually not really necessary, so it suffers even more.
Yep, so just to kind of go over some of like the really good jobs, I mean, obviously, one of the top 3 jobs, I'd probably say the top job is, I would say, Samurai, wouldn't you, Bagrat?
Yeah, depending on who you ask, it's pretty much always going to be either Samurai or Chemist that they give. Samurai is definitely the top-tier job, especially if you're newer to the game and aren't as familiar with the game systems in and of itself, because it has easily the most powerful ability in the game of Gill Toss.
Yes, Gill Toss wrecks a lot of things. Chemist is, like you said, Chemist is really strong because it has the Combine ability, which there's a lot of amazingly strong potions that you can combine to work with.
Yeah, the big factor there, though, is game knowledge, because if you to really effectively use Combine, you pretty much either need to really know this game inside out or basically have a spreadsheet up with all that info.
Exactly. We do see they're kind of going, it's pretty standard to kind of hit a lot of these checks to get into the best idea possible where you're going to be going. Kind of some other really good jobs they might be looking for are things like Ninja, because the throwables are very strong in this game. Trying to think of some of the other really top ones.
Dancer with some proper equipment can be really ridiculous. Dancer, the dance ability on Dancer basically does one of 4 things, 3 of which are decently okay, and one of which is just a massively multiplied physical attack. The trick to it is that there's some equipment you can get for Dancer, which effectively replaces one of the other 4 items with a Sword Dance, which is the multiplier attack. So if you can find one of those equipments and a decent knife to go on Dancer, Sword Dance can carry you through pretty much the first world and a half of this game.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you get like a tiara and a chicken knife, I mean, your Dancer can carry you all the way till the end.
Yeah, I typically prefer Rainbow Dress because one of the other unique things about Dancer, so the other thing that's kind of talking about the job system in 5 is that equipment differs between jobs as well. Certain jobs can equip certain weapons, certain armor, things like that. And the Dancer class and the Freelancer class, which is sort of the neutral class, are the only classes in the game that can natively equip the ribbon, which does about the same in this game as it does in pretty much every other Final Fantasy, in that it is full status immunity, which is a very powerful tool.
Yep. And so for anybody just joining, so I've just linked the link to the Final Fantasy V Career Day page where you can actually go to generate. It does link to the wiki that is there as well. And also I believe it has a link to the Career Day Discord where we have a lot of great people who are amazing at helping out. I mean, Dry and Jedders have both helped me a ton in learning this randomizer. It's an amazing community. And Dry runs into Go-Go. So he is just going to sit his controller down and wait for Go-Go to time himself out.
Yeah, so this is famous Mimic Go-Go right here. This is a character. If you're seeing Mimic Go-Go, you might be thinking FF6, but no, he only appears as a boss in this one. The trick to Go-Go is if you do basically anything to him, whoo boy, does he fight back.
Yes.
But if you just leave him alone, he's a Mimic, so he's only going to copy what you do.
Exactly. I've run into too many times, though. I'm a big fan of the Berserker class, and you get to him, and you're just like, oh god, I've got a Berserker on. I guess I'm going to have to restart and change jobs.
Yeah, that is a thing that can happen a decent amount in Final Fantasy V in general, but especially in Career Day. So saving is very important before going into boss checks, because there are a lot of bosses that have very specific tricks to them in this. Go-Go is one example. Another good one that we may see coming up at some point in this is a boss called Omniscient, who will just reset the fight if you physical attack. So it's a very key strategy to runs in Career Day, that you always want to make saves before bosses and have some good ideas for alternate plans if you run into one of those trick bosses.
Yeah, so going back to a single earlier, so this is Final Fantasy V Career Day. This is the open world randomizer for Final Fantasy V. Now, Final Fantasy V never did release, at least on the original Super Nintendo SNES in America, but there is good translation patches if you do like playing the original. The Game Boy Advance jobs are not in this. This is purely based off the Final Fantasy V. But it works very similar to Free Enterprise or Career Day, where you get, or mainly closer to Free Enterprise, where you get different key items that unlock different checks. And one of the things that Bograi was mentioning is there is a lot of bosses in this game that normally can be very tricky, but a lot of them, have a trick to how to beat them as well. There's a lot of bosses that can be instantly killed by the Odin Esper in this, and Odin has a chance to, on certain enemies, just instantly kill them. And of course, when they were originally programming this game, obviously they never thought that something like this would happen. So they gave a lot of early bosses just the ability to be downright killed by the Odin ability. Different things like that, or like Bograt was mentioning Omniscience. If you have a way to silence him, either bounce a mute off of yourself with like a wall ring, or if you have the Mystic Knight ability Mute Blade and you hit him, he mutes and then he doesn't reset anymore. So a lot of bosses have this very fun like kind of puzzle solving of, okay, how do I deal with him?
Yeah, it's actually one of the ways I usually describe Final Fantasy V to people who aren't familiar with it. It's a puzzle game cleverly masquerading as a JRPG, because almost every boss in the game has some sort of status weakness or some sort of mechanic you can exploit for an easy win. I mean, you can obviously grind up levels and just plow through them if that's the way you want to go about it, but I've seen people finish runs of this game in the low to mid 20s on levels, and it's hard, but if you know the game well enough, if you know those boss tricks, it can be done pretty well.
Yeah, we did see Dry just pick up a ton of levels off there, because that is a World 2 boss, and they normally are scaled pretty high. So he got really lucky there that he's super far
got
ahead.
A tablet off of that as well.
Oh, did he get a tablet? Okay, so he now has 2 tablets.
Yeah, that was third tablet drop. So he is basically already halfway to the void, although he is nowhere near ready for it level and equipment wise.
Yep, and even just then, I mean, I'm sure we've all had this seeds where it's like you get 3 out of the 4 tablets, and the last tablet is just down this crazy rabbit hole of, okay, this leads you here, this leads you here, this leads you here, this leads you here. So he can get those. So just because he's found that second one does not mean he's kind of super far ahead just yet.
Yeah, I did catch earlier there was one hint which was not super helpful, in that there was that caves hold nothing of value, which refers to exactly one area in the game. So that doesn't eliminate a whole lot of options there.
Yeah. Normally, the kind of if you're gutting, so he did pick up Golem Esper. So if he finds a way to cast that, Golem is another really huge Esper. Meanwhile, Jedders actually found a ribbon, and we were talking about that earlier. So if he can find a Dancer or even just the Equip Ribbon ability, that is really strong.
I believe I saw Jedders actually pick up Dancer earlier. I believe it was being sold in a shop for 10,000, and I do think he got that.
Oh yeah, that is, yeah. That can really carry you through. It looks like he does, and he picked up Chemist as well. So he has found kind of some of the top tier classes to be looking for.
Yeah, this is a power seed, and Jedders maybe a little bit behind technically right now, but with that stuff going, and unless Dries finds that same stuff soon, Jedders may take off like a rocket.
And here we can see he does have Ferris as a dancer, because we did see the Jitterbug there, which is one of the dances. The one specifically he is looking for is Swords Dance. Swords Dance is the one that does insane amounts of physical damage.
Yeah, so this is one of the fights against Gilgamesh, sometimes referred to as Greg. This is not the particularly dangerous one. It can be a little annoying with Enkidu in the back there, casting White Wind, although if you can get enough damage in on Gil early enough, he will actually leave before Enkidu shows up. The one that's really brutal to find early is actually another Greg fight, where he will have a second phase he goes into that early in the game can just be a complete party wipe because he does so much damage.
All right, I am looking into what's going on with Dryalizers right now, but we do have Jedders still going up, so I will switch the music over to his stream, just while we try to fix some technical difficulties. So he picks up the Lilith Rod, which is okay, nothing huge there.
Yeah, honestly, almost of more importance there was the gold shield drop from Gil, because that is, while not a top-tier shield, is a decent mid-range shield for early on. Again, can carry you through most of World 1 just on the back of that defense.
Oh, for sure. Oh, there we go. I think I just needed to refresh Dry's stream. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. The joys of restreaming.
Hey, it wouldn't be a valid stream without some technical issues, right?
Exactly. So we do see Dry is over at Kelb, or no, that's Rugor, so he is picking up another hint from there. And it looks like he is going to go, if he can get his character to move into the castle. So that's the other thing you might see. So when you hold B in this, you move extremely fast, as I'm sure you've seen. And half of the skills of learning this randomizer is just learning how to control how fast you go at certain spots.
Yeah, so that's actually one nice little thing. That was not a thing in the original Super Nintendo version of Final Fantasy V. It was a thing actually added in the GBA release of the game, and normally there is a thief ability called Dash, or I think Run in one of the translations,
like that.
That you can put on that lets you do that. Now, it doesn't work that way here in Career Day in the GBA version, because you already had a B button run. If you put dash on, you went like double speed, and it was kind of insane. But it was one of the nice quality of life improvements that was actually just incorporated into Career Day, is just the inherent ability of that. That being said, to explain a little bit, I mentioned earlier that Thief suffered a lot from Career Day. That's kind of one of the things, that a lot of the utility abilities off of Thief, which is most of what it has, are just incorporated immediately as quality of life. So the class itself is usually not very good in Career Day.
Yeah, so just looking at, we do see Dry is hopping into the sealed castle, and he's so far picked up a Dimension 6. He's got to be picking up that. He's picked up Crystal Shield, I believe. He's picked up Run Boots, or Haste Boots, which are really good. There's the Meteo Time Magic and his Dimension. He's picked up both of those, and I believe a Coral
Ring. Oh, that's a
Ring.
power combo. Yeah, I think Coral Ring was among the other things picked up there. Yeah, but yeah, with Dimension 6 and Meteo on its own is carry for a lot of bosses, actually.
Yes, Dimension Magic, or Time Magic also, as it's called, is extremely powerful in this. That gets you Slow 1 and 2, that gets you Haste 1 and 2, that gives you Meteo, Float, which can be used to cheese some bosses. Dimension Magic is very powerful in 5.
Yeah, so to explain a little bit about the sort of Haste 1 and 2, Slow 1 and 2 thing, some of the other Final Fantasies have the ability to multi-target spells by default. In this one, Haste and Slow, particularly Haste 1 and Slow 1, are single target, Haste, and then the 2 versions are multi-target. So they are a bit higher level, but they are one of the most important spells in the game, honestly, for Haste 2 alone.
Oh, for sure. It's interesting. It looks like everybody is basically just kind of, or it looks like Dry is skipping a lot of the World 1 checks, and he went straight to World 2. Meanwhile, it looks like Jedders is staying mostly in World 1, doing a lot of the checks that are there to go through.
It is definitely a strategy you can pull. So with the race seeds, there's various different options you can do with Career Day, including having all worlds open from the beginning. There are essentially 3 worlds in Final Fantasy V. You can lock it down to start only World 1 accessible, Worlds 1 and 2 accessible, or have all 3 worlds open from the very beginning. For race seeds, we decided that it was probably most prudent to have both Worlds 1 and 2 accessible from the beginning, just to get a little bit more option and variety. And I'm actually really glad we're kind of seeing that here in this divergent strategy, because the strategy here that I think is the one that Dry kind of follows pretty often, although I know a lot of other people tend to go more with the Jedders route, is if you kind of power through World 2, it's a risk because the bosses are harder in those areas. But at the same time, you're going to get more levels out of it and oftentimes better gear because those rewards are tiered higher, which then makes it a faster sweep back through World 1 because you're essentially overpowered for anything you might face there.
Exactly. And we actually do see Jedders is facing Omniscient, and I don't think he has really a way to deal with this, so he might have to just reset out and look at a different check for the time being. Omniscient is probably one of the most annoying bosses to run into. He does have an no, anti-magic bow doesn't silence though, right?
Anti-magic bow, I believe, has a chance to silence, but is not reliable.
Okay.
In this instance, it's only a chance.
Which is kind of what we're seeing here, where he's going to probably try to reset. He'll probably try to get it off and have it reset a few times. And you can see even the dances cause him to reset.
Yeah, essentially anything that is not a straight-up magic casting, he will reset off of. This is an interesting thing mechanically. This even goes for sort of magic tangential abilities. So the summoner has an ability called Conjure, which chooses a random summon from your Esper list and calls it in. Omniscient does not consider that casting magic and will reset the fight if you do that to him.
I'm really hoping Jedders has saved. I'm wondering if that's why he's kind of stuck in this reset, because he's like, I have not saved recently. Oh, maybe he's hoping he can just get a sword dance to straight up kill.
That is entirely possible. If you get off if you get off enough damage on him beforehand, he got it. So that flare casting is Omniscient's parting move. It will basically take out one character, but he's done after that. He will not reset the fight. So that was a power through on Omniscient from Jedders there. I think you may be right, though. I think Jedders may not have saved terribly recently, which is part of why he was reaching for that.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at both of them. So you're right. Dried has tablets 1 and 3, but has not found any other key items so far. And looking at Jedders, he has just the tablet 1, but he does have the anti-barrier, and he does have the Elder Branch.
Two very important key items for World 2 locations.
Exactly. So we said earlier that our go mode is kind of that we find the 4 tablets and then you go through Path of the Void. But with how this game's set up, we actually have kind of a semi-go mode, which means, or kind of like a first set of locks you have to get through, and then the Path of the Void. So the kind of the first set of locks we have to get through is actually World 2 Xdeath's Castle. In order to get to that check, you have to first find the bracelet, and you have to find the anti-barrier, which is what in the vanilla game allows you to change the castle over into Xdeath's Castle to actually be able to take on Xdeath. So we kind of have really 6 go mode items because you need to find the bracelet and the anti-barrier before you can even get to the void.
Yeah, and as mentioned, for our race settings, to kind of bring down the times a little bit, we do provide one of the tablets from the start, which not only gives you a little bit of a boost towards go mode, because 6 go mode items is a tall order.
Yeah.
So it reduces that, but also, as you may have seen, gives you early access to that sealed castle to hopefully get some boost equipment that can help make things a little faster as well.
Exactly. And one of the things that we kind of bounce back and forth about when looking at the race flags is like, okay, do we start them with 1 tablet or do we start them with 2 tablets? And we found that 2 tablets could make the race go even faster, but it also kind of minimizes finding an additional tablet, just because with 6 items out of your sealed castle, you're going to have pretty much everything you need out of there. Not all the time are you going to need all 12 items out of there, and 6 of them are normally good enough, and it just kind of made finding that second tablet kind of like a moot point. So we were like, okay, well, it still gives you that incentive to really find your second tablet right away to go get the rest of the good stuff out of sealed castle. The systematic, the average time for this, about 3 hours, I would say. It can go quicker, and it can also get a little bit longer, but on average, I think most of these come down to around a 3-hour mark.
Yeah, so we actually still are just kind of right now developing the racing community for Career Day. So there's a lot still in flux at the moment, and we're still kind of figuring out a lot of these data points. But I would say with what we currently have set up, the sort of race settings we have, and the kinds of seeds we've been seeing, yeah, you're typically if you've got decent experience with the game, you're looking at probably about 2.5 to 3 hours for a run. I mean, obviously with any rando, there can be hell seeds and there can be rocket seeds, so that can vary. But yeah, average times we've seen are usually between 2.5 and 3 hours.
Yep, and one of the things I know I've been thinking of, Bagrout, kind of to help deminimalize, we talked about how deminimalized basically that Thief had gotten, is I've been meaning to bring this up with everybody about possibly changing some of the steel things about what you can get from steel, to possibly make it, hey, it still is not the greatest job, but if you have steel, you might be able to get something really good. But we do see Jedders facing one of the optional bosses of the game in Necrophobia, who this early on is not going to be that much of an issue, but he can definitely be a very scary boss later on if you get him pretty scaled.
I mean, even with the scaling down that he's taken here, Necrophobe can still be pretty rough if you don't get him down fast enough, and those barriers start mass casting the magic spells.
Yep, and Jedders is actually just going to reset out. He probably doesn't want to have to deal with that. Meanwhile, Dry is going to go over to the Zeza fleet to see what's at that check. So he still has not gone back to do any of the World 1. Meanwhile, Jedders is going to go into the castle. I don't think he has picked up anything from the castle just yet. So he'll probably be excited to see that Dimension 6 and Medio in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you hadn't already powered through it, that alone is a solution to Omniscience.
Yeah, I was really surprised with that strategy, though, of using the Sword Dance to just hope for a one-shot on him. I mean, he probably knew at this spot the most it can have is this. So here we're seeing, oh, and Odin Esper was in there as well. I did not see that.
Oh, yeah, wow, if you got the ability to pull that one, that's...
Well, this is interesting because it looks... Okay, maybe I just missed it on Dry's. Okay, they are the same. I was just like, did they have different sealed castles? But it looks like... Well, no, maybe they do have different sealed castles. Is that something we need to look at?
That's interesting. Yeah, they have different
sealed castles.
They may be.
That might be something we have to look into. I've not seen that before.
Yeah, it's possible they may have gotten the divergence. One of them may have forgotten or not realized to change the spoiler log settings.
Yeah, that would be a bit of a shame. So they might not be having the exact same seeds, guys, unfortunately. We'll still get to kind of show off the randomizer, and it's a little too far into this to have them reset right now. So we're just gonna go on, and this is an exhibition race as well. Yeah, I'm wondering if Dryalizer did not see the update to it. But yeah, either way, we still get to enjoy a good race. We still get to see it now effectively 2 different seeds. It's funny that they both started off with the monk job, I thought. But I guess maybe the spoiler log is enough to cause it, the generation of the spoiler log or something?
Yeah, it's entirely possible that, because the sort of randomization of the whole thing kind of goes in a certain order, and it's possible that starting job is randomized before it kind of is modified by that spoiler log. That's sort of more of a question above my technical knowledge of how this game and how this randomizer works. Yeah, it looks like that might be a little divergence there, but hey, it's growing pains, like I said.
Exactly. This is our very new racing community.
So,
yep, we'll get it figured out. But, hey, we still get to enjoy 2 runners. It's just unfortunate it's not going to be a true race, but this just means you get to see more diversity and more strategy and kind of how each different runner handles different things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that, Bagra. Help me remind me kind of how that we need in the future to make sure. Say, hey, please don't turn on spoiler log.
I think the biggest thing is, I might just bring it up to Cleartonic. This randomizer, by the way, is primarily developed by Cleartonic, who is a great person. We love Clear, and he's been really responsive to our recent requests in kind of getting this randomizer race ready, as it were. I think we might just want to make a point to mention to him to see if we can get the spoiler log thing set up in the actual flag set.
Yeah.
Just so that this won't happen again.
Yeah, so just to kind of give everybody a history of this, and I'm kind of still kind of new. So when I actually came into the Discord, it was pretty small, and there was kind of only a few set of people. Yeah, there's not going to be a soft lock. All these seeds are completely. It has a logic gate to not soft lock it. This is just the first race we've streamed.
It's been a completable randomizer for a very long time. Like I don't think there's, even as far back as when I started, I don't think I ever saw anybody talking about, uncompletable seeds and things like that. So
yes, it's a very well-made randomizer.
To kind of give a comparison to sort of what you were saying there. Yeah. So for a while, CD was undergoing a lot of, really rapid and pretty decent development. And then, as happened to so many of us, last year was kind of a rough year and sapped motivation from a lot of people, and so it started slowing down. But yeah, recently, you and a sort of whole new crew of folks came in, particularly race interested and race focused folks, and have sort of revitalized it.
Yeah, I was really kind of happy. I remember I was racing Final Fantasy VI, and somebody told me, "Oh, hey, did you know there's a Final Fantasy V randomizer?" And I'd never even played the original Final Fantasy V. But I was like, you know what? Let me go play Final Fantasy V, and I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this would make a great randomizer. And I found Career Day, and I was like, oh man, the amount of potential this game has as a randomizer racer is just so much there. And with both of the devs for the time were kind of, like it says, they had real lives going on and everything else. And we kind of were chatting. We're like, okay, well, how can we make this raceable with using what we got? And then Clear Tonic came back and was just like, hey, yeah, here, you guys wanted free tablets? Here's a way you can have any number of starting free tablets. You wanted this and this, and he's been all of a sudden just doing an amazing job of giving us a lot of extra things added into it. So now we can start having racing flags and things like this. So a huge thank you to Clear Tonic for really giving all the things we've been asking for recently.
Yeah, so to address a question that came up in chat there, yeah, so either the base Japanese game or the RPG translated ROM will work. If you use the base Japanese game, the randomizer does apply the RPG translation to it as well, with obviously some modifications for things like the hint system and a few other changed dialogues. But yeah, so those are the two that'll work. You don't want to use any other modified form of the original Super Nintendo ROM. It will, if it even works, it will cause oddities.
Yeah, we see Jedders is going to go on to the Elder Branch check. So this is where normally you would run into the Crystal Guardians. And meanwhile, Dryalizer is taking on some Gargoyles. So if you've not played this, the Gargoyles got to be killed at pretty much the exact same time, or they regenerate each other. So
yeah, you have a very brief window. You have a very brief window between one Gargoyle going down and the other one. Otherwise, it will just resurrect them. The other thing that makes Gargoyles really brutal is they have a particular ability called Fusion, where if one of them is near death, it will use Fusion, and it will straight up sacrifice itself to basically give a full heal to the other, making it just insanely difficult to make sure they go down on same turns.
It does not do anything with the Ancient Cave mode of this. This is purely just based off of the vanilla Final Fantasy V, the original Final Fantasy V game. I do know, I have seen the Beyond Chaos, which is the Ancient Cave mode. Two very different styles of games. This one, think of, like I said, I always tell people, think of this is like the third brother in the 4, 5, 6 randomizer trilogy, basically.
Yeah, I will say, if you are interested in Ancient Cave style, there is absolutely a 5 Ancient Cave mod out there, at least one I know of. I think there's a couple different ones. The one that I know of has been around for a little while and is really solid. But yeah, this is an open world style randomizer in the vein of, as mentioned, Free Enterprise and Worlds Collide.
Yep. And if you guys have ever watched any of the Free Enterprise or the Worlds Collide seeds when I've been commentating, you've heard me before mention, hey, we're kind of planning something kind of for like a race randomizer. This was the last piece of the kind of the trilogy that I had been hinting on there, is that I was trying to get enough people into this randomizer that we could possibly one day do a 4, 5, 6 randomizer relay where we would kind of get some of our top runners from 4 and top runners from 5 and top runners from 6 to kind of do a marathon like relay race. So this is what I've been kind of hinting at for all this time, so I'm so happy I finally get to show this off to everybody, and everybody can see just how great of a randomizer this is. It was definitely a hidden gem.
I did want to mention, by the way, in addition to Dryalizer and Jedders here on stream, we do have a few other members of our community also racing this sort of behind the scenes as well. Just because when we were organizing this, we only kind of got responses from Dryalizers and Jedders at the moment. But as we talk more and more about it, some more people got interested. So we are absolutely in a growth period right now. We're always happy to welcome more people. We're hoping to kind of turn this into a and get a really good race community going, because I mean, obviously I've been around with this randomizer for a while now, so I love it, and 5 is my favorite of the Super Nintendo Final Fantasies, and maybe my favorite Final Fantasy period. So I'm really happy to always see it get more attention. And yeah, I mean, I think, as you mentioned, it just, even just like the base mechanics of the game just lend itself, I think, better to a randomizer style almost than the other two, just because like the base game alone just is so much a game about variant strategies. And if you ask any 10 people who play Final Fantasy V what their preferred strategy is, you're going to get 10 different answers.
Yeah, I do know, like, each one of us kind of has specific jobs that we generally tend to like to go with. Let me refresh Dryalizer stream real quick. Each kind of has like these, like, I very much like using the Berserker. If I find the Berserker and I can find at least something like a Rune Axe with him, I will definitely like using that strategy. Other people, as you can see, I know Jedders is a big fan of the Chemist, which tends to be a pretty popular job. Blue magic, if you can find it, can be very, very powerful. It's one of those that's like, it takes a little bit more setup than some other jobs, just because you're like, okay, I gotta find the right abilities, but if it gets the right abilities, it can carry you very, very far.
Yeah, one of the inherent benefits of blue magic over other types of magic in the game is, as is sort of typical of blue magic in Final Fantasies, all the blue magic spells are learned from enemies sort of using them on you. The big thing about that is one of the other quality of life improvements to this randomizer is that the learning ability, which is normally a thing that's only active if you are a blue mage or specifically put the learning ability on, is instead just default on. Everybody has learning on at all times. So if you are ever hit by a blue mage spell, you will learn that spell. And to answer the question in chat, yes, blue magic spells are findable in chest shops, enemy drops, just like anything else. They are also randomized in. But the point being is, even if you don't find them as a drop, you can still go and grind them out the normal ways. The normal monsters still have those abilities, and you can still learn them the natural way.
And here we see Jedders facing on Atmos, and you can see he's got 2 down, so he's basically racing to get, there he goes, going to say Atmos down before he absorbs those 2, because otherwise he's going to cast Meteor again, and probably drop the rest of the party. So 2 of the members at least will get experience off of this, so that's good to see. Meanwhile, Dryalizer, I spelled Dryalizer's name wrong now that I looked at it, but he is facing on the Ouroboros, so these guys also are kind of very similar to the Gargoyles, where you need to get them all dropped at the same time. Otherwise, if you kill one, they'll cast life, and they keep, or life 2, and they keep bringing each other back, and it can be a very pain in the butt.
Yeah, so some interesting strategy stuff on both of those. So to talk about Atomos, blanked for a second there. I mentioned a lot of the sort of puzzle gamey nature of this game. So one of the interesting things about Atomos is vulnerable to sleep. So you can put him to sleep, and he actually will not dry the dropped character towards him while he is asleep. And so as long as you put him to sleep and then only hit him with magic, you basically get a free fight out of that. Ouroboros, likewise, you mentioned about the sort of resurrection thing they have similar to Gargoyle. It's a little different, though, because, as you mentioned, they do actually specifically cast life, too. So one of the strategies, if you don't really have good AoE options, is to just kind of kill them 2 or 3 times, and they will run out of MP to actually cast that spell.
Yes,
there's looks been like more than what I might be going for.
Yeah, there's been more than one times I have had to just grind through this fight because I have no way of really stopping him, and I just have to wait for them all to run out of MP to cast life 2, and it takes a while. But yeah, so to the Gimme Flavors question, yeah, so there is a non-randomized quality of life patch that Cleartonk has also worked on that is called Project Demi. Kind of adds some quality of life features to the original Final Fantasy V game. I think it does the same thing for Sprint, like it makes you move that fast everywhere. I've never actually played Project Demi, but I do know it does exist out there as like a quality of life patch just to the vanilla game as well.
Yeah, I gave it a try very early on when it was when Clear was working on it. I don't know what it's like in its sort of final form as it stands now, but yeah, the big things about it is I definitely do not recommend using it if it's going to be your first experience with vanilla FF5. If I'm being honest, I would recommend just playing the GBA version for that. But what it mostly does is it removes sort of all the dialogue and cutscenes. And then, yeah, adds a bunch of quality of life features to make a much more sort of streamlined play through the game. I would wager a vanilla playthrough of the Super Nintendo version with Project Demi is you could probably get through it if you really know what you're doing in like 8 or 9 hours.
Yep. So we got Jedders taking on Shiva, pretty easy boss even at this spot. Meanwhile, Dryalizer just finished up the Zeza fleet. I forgot who he is fighting out there, but I'm gonna take a peek to see what items everybody has, or what key items everybody has. So it does look like Dry has the submarine key, the Elder Branch, and the Hiryu Call. We've already seen him use the Hiryu Call, but he does have the submarine key, like what we're seeing him use now. Meanwhile, back at the Hall of Justice, Jedders has the big bridge key. He does have the 4th tablet, so he has found one tablet that that Dry has not. Now this could be because unfortunately they don't have the same identical seeds. But he does have the big bridge key and 2 tablets as well. Yes, I've never played the PS1 port of Final Fantasy V. I literally went out and bought a cart of Final Fantasy V, and I have a way to patch it, so...
Yeah, I unfortunately have played the PlayStation version. The translation is okay. Honestly, the biggest problem with kind of all the PS1 versions of the Super Nintendo JRPGs they ported is mostly load times. The load times are absolutely horrendous.
Oh, that's never good.
Like, especially Final Fantasy V was really bad with it. The worst I would probably say is Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger suffered real bad on the PlayStation port.
Yeah, if you're going to play Chrono Trigger and you can't afford, trust me, as somebody who's bought a Chrono Trigger SNES card, they are not cheap. If you really want to play Chrono Trigger, get the ROM, get the GBA port, I think. I've heard is pretty good. Yeah, same with 5. There's a lot of these like SNES era or JRPGs where like the PS1 probably did not. Oh, DS, okay.
Yeah, the DS version.
Yeah, I've seen that one. I've heard that one's pretty good. But yeah, a lot of like the PS1 did not do justice to a lot of these SNES RPGs.
Strangely, one of the best ports I actually played of like an old school JRPG on the PS1 was God, what do they call it? Was it like Final Fantasy Origins, I want to say, which was
is that like
a
the Romancing
port.
Saga games?
So it was specifically a port of the 1 and 2 versions, but it was specifically the Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 2 versions from the Wonder Swan Color.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, it's crazy at how, kind of seeing chat, like how many like Final Fantasy randomizers they have now. I think realistically, outside of like, as far as like retro era Final Fantasy games, the only ones that don't have an open world randomizer now are 2 and 3. 2, I think, is... I very much am a fan of 2 because I like the Romancing Saga games, and the Romancing Saga came out of Final Fantasy 2. Final Fantasy 3 I've never played. I want to play it. I have just heard it's kind of like 5 light.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I really see. Yeah, I mean, even people in chat are saying it. Like, Final Fantasy 3 very much felt like a prototype of what eventually became 5. It had some really good ideas. It had a lot of similar concepts to what you end up seeing in 5. It's just due to either technical limitations or not, like, fully developing those ideas, it just did not end up working out quite as well. It's still a decent game to play through, but it can definitely drag at times, and the job system it has does not feel as fluid or as rewarding as the one in 5, or even later instances of the job system like Tactics.
Yeah, so, yeah, as far as, like, randomizers for the other ones, I mean, I do think it is partially that there's not as much popularity for those two. So here we see Jedders just running into Go-Go, so we definitely know they have 2 different seeds now.
Yeah.
But 2 and 3 I never got released in America until way later, until like Origins, I think, or till like the PSP. And same with 5. 5 really didn't get released until much later either, so I don't think people have as much Now, thankfully, we're trying to rebuild the 5 scene and show everybody how good this game was. So it just didn't have that nostalgia factor that 4 and 6 and 1 did.
Yeah, kind of an interesting thing about that, though, is even though, 5 never, didn't get a official Western release until sort of very late on, sort of an interesting historical fact, kind of tangential to everything, is Final Fantasy V was actually one of the, like, sort of earliest ROM translation projects.
I could see it. I could definitely see it. And it's you can truly tell it's one of those things that people talk about all the time, like, oh, the job system and tactics, those are the best. And it's like, have you played the job system in 5? I think the job system in 5. Now, you get that in tactics, you have like, oh, well, this job and this job unlock this third job. So you kind of had like tier 2 jobs instead of just what I'd call like tier 1. But it's like, but all that wouldn't be possible really without 5 to really kind of and 3 to really lay the groundwork of how a job system would work. And I've noticed most people tend to like job system Final Fantasy games, kind of some of the best, so.
Yeah, so to just put sort of exact numbers on it, if I'm remembering correctly, I want to say RPGE released their initial translation patch for Final Fantasy V for the Super Famicom in 1996.
Holy cow. I was 9 back then.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was one of the earliest. It may have even been like the earliest like ROM translation project out there. So it in many ways, if you like playing translated ROMs, you have Final Fantasy V to thank for it. Yeah.
We see Dry is going to go take on the anti-barrier tower, so he is going to see. So he is still on the hunt, obviously looking for tablets and for the anti-barrier and the bracelet. And Jedders is just doing like we all do when we run into Go-Go and just wait. Now, Dry is running into Galura at a very bad spot. Galura swings fast and hard. So unless you have a way to really deal with him at a spot like this, you can see he's putting up haste and everything. He can be very nasty. But it looks like he has Golem, so he should be okay.
Yeah, Golem, as long as you've got decent DPS to run behind it, Golem can pretty much solve the Galura fight for you.
Yeah, but I'm sure we've all run into Galura at a bad spot before you've gotten like really good physical mitigation, and he just goes to town on you.
Oh, let me tell you about the wonders of Void Galura.
Oh, man. I think
he hits for like 5 or 6k. It is brutal.
Yep, I think the worst. I've never run into Galura there. I think the worst I've run into the Void was Bahamut in the Void, and I realistically had no way to deal with him. I actually had to just kill the run because I was like, I'm gonna have to grind up so much to be able to take him. He outsped everything I basically did, and it was just like Mega Flare turn 1 most of the time. It's just like, really, this is where Bahamut's gonna be.
Oh, to address a question which people that are familiar with FF5 may have, just to kind of get that out there in case anyone was wondering, the 2 super optional bosses, Shinryu and Omega, are not rotated into the normal the randomized boss rotation. They are still in their normal spots. However, one of the things that the randomizer does do is it actually does change up their weaknesses and resistances and such.
Yep.
So it is still actually a worthy challenge to kind of go in and try and figure out those fights in this game. They're completely optional. They don't really get you much of anything, but they are an interesting option. And that actually brings up another thing that we maybe want to talk about, which is the portal bosses.
I was going to say, I was actually, funny you bring that up, because I've never actually dealt with the portal bosses, so it'd be great. Before we hop into that, Dry did pick up his 3rd tablet, so he now has 3 tablets.
Okay, he's on a really good run so far.
Yeah, he's 3 an hour so far.
And yeah, that's pretty much the response about, is there any incentive to fighting the optional bosses? Yeah, it's about as much as there was in the original game. There's no real reason to fight them. But to explain about the portal bosses, so one of the things that Clear Tonic did that was really cool is there is an optional end boss for the game, essentially an alternate end condition rather than fighting Tree X Death / Neo X Death, final boss of Final Fantasy V. You can instead go off and fight one of, I believe we're now up to three
Yep.
completely original bosses. There's basically a portal right at the final zone that can take you to them instead. And they are each one designed sort of a specific way to sort of make you really think through the sort of strategies available to you in the game. And each one kind of provides its own unique challenge.
Yeah, now I don't know if we've ever... it's something we haven't decided, like, okay, I don't think we ever checked to see if it's quicker to go through the portal bosses or do Neo X Death, but it might be end up one day that we do a flag where, hey, you do not do Neo X Death, you have to do the portal boss. Might be something we look at doing as well.
Yeah, so to discuss that too, we actually just started doing Seed of the Week sort of competitions, asynchronous races, over in the Discord in our race channel.
Yep.
So again, if you're interested in joining, find that link and get over there. So we've started doing those. We're literally just in the midst of our second Seed of the Week right now. So every Monday we're going to have kind of different people right now coming up with some seed ideas, different flag sets, different stuff to kind of have fun with the game as well. But yeah, the big thing about the portal bosses is I think definitely at the moment I can't imagine any of them being faster than Ned, if only because we all kind of know the strategies for Ned, and I don't think we've had enough people really face off against the portal bosses yet to really sort of develop solid strategies 100% of the time against them. So if nothing else, that would be the slowdown there.
Yep, so I have just put, as I try to type and talk at the same time, I've just put the link in chat for the actual place where you'd go to find and generate Career Day seeds, where you can see kind of all the different flags that we have. And it also takes you to the wiki, where we have a lot of great, like a beginner's guide, and a couple of us are working on a kind of a more in-depth beginner's guide, similar to if you've been into the Worlds Collide Discord. They have that amazingly good put-together beginner's guide, but also has the link to the Discord in there. And like I said, Dry and Jedders are both amazing for helping out new runners. You can pretty much ask any question. They handheld me getting through an entire seed one time in my stream. They're like, all right, yeah, you want to pick up this. Here's how you can face this boss. Oh, this is what you've got. Okay, well, here's how you can beat this boss. So no question is too small for the community and for the people to help you out with figuring out.
Yeah, we're a very friendly Discord. Everyone that's in that Discord and active around there is pretty much always really happy to see new people jump in. Whether you've played Final Fantasy V a million times or never touched it before in your life, we love talking about the game and about Career Day. So.
And Eat It Up 86, thank you so much for the party of 16. So welcome everybody who's joining us. This is the first exhibition race of the Final Fantasy V Career Day Open World Randomizer. We've got our runners Dryalizer tonight and hxcjedders. So because this is of growing pains for us, the two runners accidentally do have different seeds, but it's still a fun time to get to see two different runners kind of doing two different styles and everything. It's a great and up-and-coming randomizer. The other thing we have not talked about is this randomizer, if you've ever heard of the 4-job fiesta that gets done. I forget what time of year, but the Final Fantasy V 4-job fiesta, this randomizer actually has a way that you can set up the 4-job mode as well. And it can actually make it so you only get one job, just 4 of that one job as well. So you can really do a 4-job fiesta randomizer mode as well if you really want a different kind of challenge also. So there's a lot of fun things you can do with it.
Yeah. Additionally, some of the other options that are available, there's also sort of a pure chaos mode. This was something that came into being a while back when we had sort of a roundtable discussion about what other things we might want to see in the randomizer. And I prior to Career Day kind of even coming on my radar, there is actually another Final Fantasy V randomizer out there. It's not an open world style. It's a more traditional randomizer called Grand Cross. And one of the things that was interesting in Grand Cross, one of the tags you could set was completely randomizing abilities in the game. And in discussion, I brought that up, and a few people kind of latched onto it as being an interesting idea. So one of the other things you can set up is when I do want to just lose my mind, I do pure chaos runs where I turn on basically every option that peaks as much randomization into the game as possible. So sometimes you can generate classes with that don't even have like fight or item.
Yeah, you can get into some pretty wild stuff. So we see Jedders is now going to his Hiryu plant check, so he'll get to see what's there. I'm gonna try to take another peek in at their streams to see what, because unfortunately we don't have a tracker just yet for everything. So it looks like Dry currently has he's got 3 out of the 4 tablets. He does have it looks like the only new key item he has picked up outside of this submarine key is the Adamantite, which that opens up the floating Lanka ruins, so that's a few checks there. And it looks like Jedders currently, so, I guess I could actually tell you what they've all checked as well, so that can kind of give us this idea. So Dry has checked, I think he does his a little bit differently, so he has gotten... Alright, I'm not going to use his. He does his a weird way that's hard for me to tell. I think he unchecks boxes as he finds them. So he has found Gilgamesh 3. Oh, I'm not even going to try. This is a little too difficult to read. But it looks like Jedders has done the Windshrine check. He has the Big Bridge key. He has the Walsh Tower key. He does have the Anti-Barrier as well. Yes, thankfully, the emo tracker for this one. I'm a big fan of the emo tracker for this randomizer because A, it has a map, because you are trying to learn 3 different maps effectively in this game, because you have got World 1, World 2, and World 3. But it also does a great job of tracking all the key items and all the bosses as well. But yeah, so Jedders, meanwhile, has the Anti-Barrier. He is still looking for his bracelet, but does have the Walsh Tower key, and has done quite a few bosses. I think a few more bosses than Dry has done as well. So just looking at everybody, it looks like Dry is picking up a few tins. So they say the second tablet is present in World 1 for Dry. So somewhere in World 1 is his last tablet to be kind of effectively in go mode. Then he just needs to find the bracelet and Anti-Barrier.
Yeah, so to address that too, the hints in this game kind of vary in specificity. Sometimes they can be very vague and just say something like, their such and such place is on the path to the void, which doesn't necessarily tell you specifically what's there. Alternatively, they can just tell you very specifically, like, this key item is in this place.
Yes. So sometimes, yes, they can be very, very good. Sometimes they're like, well, that really didn't help me out too much, but at least it gives you something. Even if it gets rid of one check, then you're like, okay, at least I know I don't have to go check there. But yes, this randomizer, it does have a lot of checks to it, so it's very good to keep track of have an emo tracker or some sort of tracker to keep track of everything, and the map. So that makes it both good and kind of a little bit longer in some spots, but it's kind of more like, people always feel like randomizers need to be this quick, really fast thing. I'm like, people love the Zelda Ocarina of Time randomizer, and I've seen seeds for that thing go 3, 4, 5 hours as well. So it's not like a longer randomizer cannot be good because it can't be done in like an hour and a half.
Yeah, obviously it's all, very dependent on personal preference and things like that. But I think it kind of sits the same way as speed runs, for instance. Like for me personally, like even I love speed runs. I have trouble watching a lot of JRPG speed runs because if a speed run is like 15 hours, that's still a bit much for me,
It's funny, too, because you look at some speedruns, like, what is it, Final Fantasy 9 or something like that, that is 15 hours, and you're just like, that's not a speedrun, my man, even if you're going as fast as possible.
It's like, by technical definition, it is playing the game, like, as fast as possible, but, whew, that's a rough definition of speed. I will say, as we kind of mentioned at the start of this, we have been working to try and sort of narrow down and reduce those times, because for a while, prior to that sort of revitalization of the coding on this, getting sub 3 hour times with sort of the settings we had going was a little bit rough. You had to get a really good seed to pull that. But yeah, so even now, the race settings are we're still calling them sort of prototype or test race settings. We are not 100% sold on these are going to be the flags that we use forever and ever. We are, as I said, we're a growing community right now. We are just kind of getting started with things. So people come in, people have different experiences. As we get more people, running the game, more people testing, more people giving feedback, those are, subject to change and develop. So hopefully we'll kind of get it down. But yeah, like right now we have it down to that like sort of 2.5 hour, 3 hour time frame, which I think is what we sort of set out to aim for. But obviously, yeah, sometimes you get a bad seed, it runs longer, but it's still a lot of fun to play. So that's, I think, the most important part.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, and even really for us to get to these race flag settings, we all kind of sat down in Discord one day and we're like, okay, let's go step by step through all the flags. And do you think this should be in the race setting? Yes. Okay, that's cool. Do you think this? No, that probably shouldn't be in there. It adds too much time. Okay.
There was some heated discussion.
Yes, there was.
I will fully own up to being part of some of that heat. But I think part of it, I think a lot of it just shows, how much a lot of us really care about this game and this randomizer. That we were really wanted to make sure that whatever we kind of put out there as the race settings, the thing to kind of draw those people in, really did its best to sort of exemplify what's Career Day great.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that kind of made some of those discussions a little bit heated was that there was so much options that you could do in the randomizer, and people had been kind of playing the way they liked it for so long that people were a little bit reluctant to kind of go to maybe a middle ground for things. But thankfully everybody was just like, yeah, let's try giving these race flags a setting. We found something that most people agreed on, and we've been having pretty good success with it. A lot of people have been like, yeah, I'm liking, as far as for a race goes, I'm liking kind of where the time puts you at. Nothing feels super overpowered. Eat it up to some of your points, like, yes, there is some glitches with Chemist, but a lot of us won't use those just because we're like, hey, it just kind of is out of the fairness of the game.
Yeah, the general agreement I think we all kind of came to that we're working on at the moment is pretty much almost every glitch in the game is fine. Basically, the only thing that's not okay is no Ned skip. Because the whole point of the game is beating Ned. Like if we were essentially defining the category, time ends on this when you get the second death flash from Neo X death. So if you don't fight Neo X death, you don't get that, which means your time's still running.
Yep. So like one of the other things that we had talked about with that was just like, and this is one we're still very much kind of debating. So abilities like Gill Toss that are just extremely powerful, because even Chemist has some good mixes that can make it a very, very powerful job, but you still have to A, know all those mixes, and B, find the items to be able to mix them. Granted, most of them are pretty common to find, but it still takes some extra time hunting. Gill Toss, we're still kind of debating like, okay, do you allow Gill Toss, do you not allow Gill Toss? So that is still kind of up for debate. Right now, we are under the presumption you can use Gill Toss, but...
Yeah, basically at the moment, the Gill Toss question, and pretty much anything other than Ned skip, which I said is just sort of blanket, like, no, don't skip Ned. Any other things, like whether or not to allow Gill Toss, whether or not... There was even some discussion about whether or not to allow Chemist or Combine, is basically just kind of left to the particular people in that specific race and what they agree to. Those are not hard and set rules for the race community by any means.
Yep. So yeah, that is kind of one of those things that, but you probably will see the runners tonight. If they find Gill Toss, I bet you, because they know this is a race, even though it's an exhibition, you still want to win the race.
Oh yeah, I do not doubt for a second that if either of them comes across Samurai or just the Gill Toss ability, that will be pretty much the remainder of their runtime.
So we did see Dry now has run into Omniscient, but he had Mute Blade, and he had the Mystic Knight ability to use it. So here you can see he's trying to cast Flare, but he's been muted because of Mystic Knight goes through Wall. The wall spell, so he's able to mute them up and just go to town. And what's interesting too, and he has a second tablet, so Dry is technically in go mode, but he still needs to find his bracelet and his anti-barrier to be able to get to Xdeath's castle to unlock World 3 so he can go into the Void. So even though he's technically in go mode, he still needs 2 more items.
Yeah, he's in final go mode, but doesn't have the actual entrance unlocked, as it were.
Yeah, he's not. He's got the exactly. That's I think the best way to put it. It's like he's still got the roadblock of Xdeath to get through. Now he probably is at the point now where he's going to run into Xdeath's castle and spank Xdeath pretty quick. So he probably won't have any problem there. But Xdeath can, even just at Xdeath castle, Xdeath can be a little bit nasty if you get him into the portal or the health range where he starts casting all of his fire, like his high level spells, and you don't get him down quick enough. Xdeath can be pretty nasty.
Yeah, one thing I did want to address that I don't think we really talked about too much, is the Warp Shard item, which is an item that was added specifically by the Career Day Randomizer, and that is how you sort of transition between the worlds. It is usable most places in the game. There are a couple rooms here and there where you cannot actually activate the Warp Shard, just because it caused basically the game to break itself, just from sort of weird triggers not being set properly. But yeah, you can see that the first item in the list there is the Warp Shard, as Dry is using it right here. And it takes you to this little sort of room here that has these flashes. As you unlock additional spots, there will be an additional, shine there for World 3. And also, if you choose to fight what is normally the Necrophobe spot right before the final boss, which normally unlocks a save point, it will unlock a save point and a specific teleport point right at that spot. So you can kind of teleport right back to before the final boss if you decide you need to head out and grind some more or something like that.
The other thing it's great for is it gets used a lot as a like a exit spell. So you don't even need the exit spell really anymore. You can just go Warp Shard, exit out, and it's probably going to be faster than running out of some dungeons.
I have not walked out of Hiryu Valley since I started playing Career Day.
Oh, for sure. And we see Dry does find slow too, so he'll have that. Jedders had to reset. He did run into Adamanti at a kind of a nasty spot on the big bridge. But to Give Me Flavor's question, so how the vanilla items and everything gets distributed. So there is some tiering to it. So like in World 1, there is items in the program, it kind of assigns like a tier to everything. Like Guild Toss is considered like the highest tier, I think tier 9 ability. So the chances of finding it in World 1 are very, very low. We do have some flags set up that basically do allow for some overflow though. So like even though it's in World 1, you might find in a chest or something a very high level ability or a high level item because it is part of the overflow, where basically the program will go 15% of like certain items in a tier can be pulled from higher tier items down. It's a little bit hard to explain. So there is some incentives to still doing like the lower level checks, just because there is still the option that you might find something. And there's a lot of low level items that you really, really want though too. I mean, like softs are hugely important in Final Fantasy V. If you find softs, you buy 20 of them.
Yeah, so all those sort of status cures, things like that. So to kind of give more specifics about it, basically every spot in the game, so that's every chest, every barrel that has an item in it, every boss spot, every store in the game has a tier assigned to it, somewhere between 1 through 9. And then likewise, basically everything that could be in those spots has a tier 1 through 9. So an item... But so basically, if a spot is like, say, a tier 5 spot, it means that anything tier 5 or below could show up in that item. Though we're not 100% on this, but from most of our experience, it seems like it tends to stay pretty close. You're not usually going to, open a tier 5 or tier 6 chest and find like a potion in it. But likewise, the reward tiering options allow you to customizably set when you generate your seed, how many tiers above you would like there a chance to be, and what percentage chance for it to be that many tiers above. Likewise, it is a completely optional rule. You can actually just full-on turn off that reward tiering if you'd like to, which means, the very first chest in the game could have Ragnarok in it for all it matters. We obviously don't do that for race seeds, just to kind of provide a little bit more incentive to not just hit, massive check areas in World 1 and get, the rest of the game solved for you. And also just because it makes the game a little bit more fun to play when you kind of have that gradual growth of strength.
Exactly. And to kind of go over the progression and go mode items for this. So there's kind of 2 stages of progression and go mode. So the first stage of progression is that... I guess it depends on what you mean by key or progression items. So the go mode items and progression items to kind of go through the entire game since World 1 and World 2 are unlocked, you are looking for the bracelet, and you are looking for the anti-barrier. That is what's used to unlock Xdeath's Castle. And you need to go into Xdeath's Castle and beat Xdeath there in order to unlock World 3. And then in World 3, there is the Void section, which is what kind of leads to... It's kind of the boss rush of the game. You have to find the 4 tablets to be able to progress all the way through the Void. And then at the very end of the Void, you will face the Tree Man himself, Xdeath, and killing the final form of Xdeath, which is Neo Xdeath, is the end of the game. But progression items, so that can be anything. Eat It Up made a kind of a great explanation from that, but that could be anything from like finding at Ifrit's Fire. So in the Ancient Library, there is one free check that you could do, which is the normal Ifrit spot. But to be able to take on, I believe it's Biblos is who's normally there, you normally have to have Ifrit's Fire in the vanilla game to take him on. So in this one, you need to find Ifrit's Fire to be able to go do the Biblos check. Sandworm bait, you need that in order to be able to take on the Sandworm in World 1. So it's pretty close to the vanilla on what key item you need to be able to go take that boss on.
Kind of. Actually, just to address that, since I know you're not quite as familiar with vanilla FF5, actually a lot of those flags in the base vanilla game are not actually key items. They are just, the Ifrit's Fire thing is normally you fight Ifrit about halfway through the library, and winning that fight is what gets you the Ifrit Esper, which is what sets the flag that lets you progress on. So to address that, since it's entirely possible with the randomization occurring that Ifrit may not be accessible prior to that, that's why things like Ifrit's Fire, Sandworm Bait, and such were changed into key items.
That's right, yeah, because they added a lot of key items, didn't they?
Yeah, so that was sort of as necessary to make randomization really possible so that sort of any boss could show up anywhere. They had to change a lot of those flags over to key items. And as I'm sure anyone who's at all familiar with how sort of kludged together and wonky the coding in pretty much any Final Fantasy game prior to about the PlayStation 2 era is, we've seen some of Cleartonic's trials and tribulations of figuring out why things are working a certain way, and a lot of those key items had some really weird flag stuff set with them. One of the actual most recent bugs we just finally figured out was a weird sealed castle lock-in, where it was technically possible to put down a 5th tablet in the sealed castle and essentially end up locked in there, because you couldn't remove the tablet because it'll only remove once you've taken 3 items. But if you had already taken all 12 items, you could never escape that room. And it turns out that every tablet actually has 2 flags, only one of which is actually the item, which is what it ended up being.
Yeah.
Like, very weird stuff like that with key item distribution.
Yeah, and if anybody, I mean, if you've played the original Final Fantasy V, compared to like a Final Fantasy IV, there was a lot of events that occurred in Final Fantasy V. Like, there's a lot of like cutscenes and stuff like this that are actually kind of like what I would consider an event even without a key item. So that's why there's so many key items in this as well, because you're constantly having kind of these big events throughout the game. It really kind of never slows down. I will say, Final Fantasy V, if you're going into this after playing 4 and 6, like the vanilla games, the story is very, very lighthearted. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's not going to hit as hard as like a Final Fantasy IV or Final Fantasy VI as far as like deep hitting stories go, but it's a fun, very lighthearted game with great mechanics in it.
Yeah, it definitely has a couple of those moments, but yeah, overall I would not say is necessarily as dramatic as 4, and I don't really think gets nearly as dark as 6 does.
No, I mean, there was a moment I was actually playing the Vanilla 5 that I laughed out loud, and I'm sure anybody who's played has known, it's the Splinter moment, where you just see this and you're just like, wait, what? No. And you just start laughing.
Like, it definitely has some moments of like sort of seriousness or
it does.
Or darkness, but in general tone, I would say it is a lot more cartoony than 4 and 6. Like 6 ended up having some humor, but in reality, a lot of that was due to the Ted Woolsey translation over here in the West. If you ever play a more quote unquote accurate translation of 6, it's a pretty dry game. It doesn't really have a whole lot of humor to it. 5 definitely has a better sense of humor about everything that's going on.
And if you want some real fun, the main character's name, even though it'll say Bartz, in the original translation, his name was Butz. B-U-T-Z. So I always have him named as Butz in my party. So
even funnier note about that, while pretty much any Western release refers to him as Bartz, officially in Japan,
it's
the
Butz.
Romanization of his name is just Butz.
Yeah.
I mean, the Japanese is Batsu, but like if it ever shows up like in Japanese media, like in Dissidia, for instance, when it shows up spelled in English, it's just Butz, B-U-T-Z.
It's too good. You can't make that kind of thing up. We've got Jedders facing one of my least favorite bosses, Apocalypse. Apocalypse is a blue mage, and he has all the craziness that a blue mage can do.
Yeah, he can be a pretty tough fight, although he does have probably the single funniest quick kill in the game.
I've not seen the quick kill for Apocalypse.
Yeah, so the trick to Apocalypse is, since he is sort of the epitomization of blue magic, he casts a bunch of blue magic spells, but also will learn blue magic spells from you. So if you cast a blue magic spell on him, he will immediately turn around and cast it back on you. This does include self-destruct.
Oh, so if you teach him Exploder, is that what it is?
Yeah, Exploder. So if you have somebody in your party use Exploder on him, they will blow themselves up and die and deal some damage to him. He will immediately turn around and use Exploder on one of your party members, basically killing them as well, but also killing himself.
So if you get him in the void, you're just like, yeah, man, I've got Exploder. This is easy.
Yeah, I mean, that's where he normally is. He is normally one of the void bosses. And yeah, it is, I would say, easily the single funniest quick kill in the entire game, because it's just kind of this, you have chosen to use blue magic against me? What a fool! I will use your own power against you. Oh, wait a second.
Yeah, I see what you did there. Speaking of that, kind of some of the other quick kills in this game. So there's surprisingly, we've talked about this earlier, but certain espers in this game are insanely powerful as well, because the programmers never intended you to be facing certain bosses where you would get this esper. So things like Shote, who paralyzes pigs. There's a lot of bosses that just die to paralyze.
Petrifies, yeah. Petrify, yeah.
Even one of the pieces of Neo Xdeath, the part that uses, I believe it's called Almagest, I think I was pronouncing it wrong.
Yep, Almagest.
Can just be shoted. It has a low chance of hitting, but you can just paralyze it, and then it's done. You're like, well, that was pretty easy.
Yeah, so to address that, the final boss, Neo Xdeath, consists of 4 parts, and each part has different sort of stats and different vulnerabilities and things like that, and each part is also actually considered a different type of monster. And one of the reasons why that particular part is weak to petrification is because that is the part that is considered a quote-unquote man-type enemy.
Interesting. I did not know that was the behind it. The other one, if you ever get Odin and you have the ability to summon it, almost like half the bosses in this game just get instant killed by Odin.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things about Odin in 5 is a thing that it has shown up in some of the other Final Fantasies with Odin, but it's not that common. So typically Odin is just a full screen instant kill attack. But Odin in this game actually has 2 different things he can do. Because if you try to summon Odin against a thing that is immune to instant death, I don't remember if it's just a high chance or if it's guaranteed. He will actually just show up and throw Gungnir at them rather than doing his normal True Slash or Zangetsu move, and basically just do a huge pile of damage rather than an instant kill. If I remember
correctly, right? It's like non-elemental piercing.
Yeah, it's non-elemental piercing damage, so it basically ignores defense. It's not affected by any elemental weakness, and can usually, even if there's a boss that is immune to instant death effects, it can sometimes still be worth it to summon Odin just to get that Gungnir in, because it can sometimes just kill him just from the damage outright.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those really, really good ones. Really, all of the top tier espers in this are really good. Bahamut's really good, obviously. Odin's really good. Phoenix is even usable at times. Leviathan hits everything, is really, really strong. So Esper Summoner is probably one of the, that's what kind of going back to earlier, we were talking about kind of some of the top 3 or 4 or 5 jobs. Summoner is also extremely powerful in this game.
Yeah, my actual favorite, because I know you had mentioned that you're, you've got some really big options. Yeah, you like Berserker. Dry has his preferences. I am actually a huge fan of Mystic Knight. Mystic Knight is some of the best utility in the entire game, honestly. To explain, Mystic Knight has Spellblade or Magic Sword as their class ability. And what that does is you learn, so in vanilla, you learn it at the same time as you learn the regular spell. In Career Day, those are actually separated out, so the Magic Sword magics are a different spell than the black or white spell they are equal to. But the power of it is that if it's, say, a status effect, that you put on your sword, if you use that on an enemy who is not basically immune to that status effect, they are 100% affected by that status effect. That's why, for instance, the Mute Blade is a really good option against Omni, because it is a guaranteed mute on him. There is no chance, like if you're using the Anti-Magic Bow or, say, the Mage Masher, it is just a guaranteed. If you hit Omni with it, it affects them with mute. Likewise, if you get the top level elemental spells, so Fire 3, Bolt 3, Ice 3, and hit anything that is weak to that element, it is an instant kill.
Yep, it is really, really good. So yeah, Mystic Knight's another one of those really good ones. There's really only a few jobs that like you generally don't stick around with too long. Things like Mediator really aren't as useful. They have their place every once in a while. Thief, like we said, unfortunately, unless we decide to change the steel flags, even then would probably still be a lower tier job. Dragoon, unfortunately, unless you have a really good setup, kind of tends to get put to the wayside. But
I will honestly say in that regard, Dragoon is one of the few that really hasn't been changed that much between Career Day and Vanilla.
Yeah.
It's not, honestly, a particularly good class in Vanilla either,
Nope.
Because they designed a tank class whose primary ability is leaving the screen.
Exactly. There is times, though, like if you get a Partisan at the very beginning or like a Holy Lance, yeah, it'll carry you through for a good ways. But normally there's other things you can set up that are going to be better. Trying to think of some of the middle tier, like Archer's okay, just because if you get it early enough, you can get X-Fight out of it. That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other?
Also, there are some really powerful bows out there too.
Yes,
so
there is.
The hunter class can actually do some really good work.
Yeah, X-Fight with Yoichi bow.
And the other thing about that is that the bows are tiered a bit lower than most of the other weapon types.
I'm trying to think of some of the other fun jobs that unfortunately don't get as much limelight as I wish they would. Bard does get used a good bit. I know Dry is a big fan of Bards, just because of the song ability. I'm trying to think of some of the others. Make sure I have not lost my co-commentator. Bograd, are you there? Can you hear me? Okay, looks like something might have come up with Bograd, but there is generally quite a few of the other jobs that you can really take advantage of. Obviously, like we said, was that you, Bograd?
Sorry about that. Had a brief audio issue.
You're fine. I was talking about kind of some of the other fun jobs. I mean, that aren't kind of low tier. Like I said, Berserker is one of my favorites. It's not considered a high tier job, but with kind of the right setup, if you can get a Rune Axe that goes based off of your MP, and you can get a Thornlet, which actually reduces your MP. And this game does have like an underflow glitch, where then it causes the game to seem as having like I think 999 MP.
It's not based off of MP. It's actually based off of your like magic attack stat or your magic stat, and that's what Thornlet reduces. And yeah, it causes an underflow glitch. It does use MP to boost the attack value, but if you're playing Berserker, you're not really using your MP for anything else, anyways.
Yeah.
And yeah, it can be one of the single most powerful weapons in the game. Amusingly, another way to get a great deal of power out of the Rune Axe is to just put Equip Axe on a White Mage.
Yeah. Yep. You'll see that a lot.
Before my audio kind of glitched out there, one that I was bringing up that most people consider pretty low tier, and I can definitely see the arguments for it, but I actually quite like, is Geomancer, actually. Geomancer is a very interesting class where its primary ability is almost entirely situational. If you're more familiar with, say, FF6, he's got sort of similar to, like, Mog's stances, where depending upon where you are, will trigger different attack types. The thing about it is they're not super great usually, and like the equipment options for Geomancer are not stellar typically, but there are a few instances where Geomancer really shines, and in particular Geomancer can be useful for dealing with what is, in my opinion, the single worst boss in the game.
Who is that?
That would be Stalker.
Oh yeah, Stalkers are annoying. That's another boss that I hate running into.
Yeah, so it hasn't shown up yet, but the idea with Stalker is that there is one real Stalker and 3 fake Stalkers on screen, and if you use any form of AoE attack, he will counter with a full party attack called Blaze, which does a lot of damage. Yeah, it does a lot of damage to the whole party. So it is pretty often, especially if you run into him early, a full party wipe. Basically, the only like AoE attack you can release against him that does not trigger this is the Geomancer's terrain ability, which, if it uses one of its multi-hit terrains, will not trigger.
Yeah, so we see Dryalizer does have a time mage going, and he's going to use that light staff there. That's really big. We've got he actually has found his bracelet and his anti-barrier, so he is on his way to X-Death, so he technically is in go mode. He just now has to get up to a level where he can deal with Neo X-Death and get through the Void. You can see he does have the prevent damage from floors ability, so he can get to check these chests. But so he is technically in go mode. I'll have to look and see where Jedders is at. And, yeah, again, just for anybody who is joining us, unfortunately these two runners, because of there's a little bit of a goof up with getting the seeds. They do not have the exact same seed, so they are not technically racing against each other, but it's still a fun exhibition to kind of show off two different runners of this game. It looks like Jedders also has his anti-barrier and his ring. He is still missing tablets 2 and 3, so he is in his seed behind.
Yeah, so to address the question there about what level they need to reach, it's not really a specific number per se. A lot of it has to do with what you have available to deal with the final boss. So, for instance, if you have an easy way to take out the part of Ned that casts Almagest, you're not on quite as much of a level barrier, because Almagest is basically just a huge hitting full party attack. And usually if you're level rushing for Ned, it's to have enough HP to survive that and kind of come back from it. That being said, I did notice when Dry had his status screen up earlier, he's currently in like low 30s. I think he's mostly level 33, which puts him decently on pace to have a pretty solid run straight through, actually. Because he'll probably gain a handful of levels between this and the Void bosses, which means he'll probably be going into to the Ned fight late 30s, early 40s, which is pretty easily doable if you've got some decent equipment and jobs, which, as we've seen, he definitely does.
And I will say, looking at it, I mean, you can see that that Dry, on his version of the seed, is a pretty jetty seed, too. I mean, before even getting to World 3, he had all of his tablets.
Yeah. This may very well be one of the faster seeds I've ever seen, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, wow, this is extremely fast for a seed. Meanwhile, Jedder's seed is looking more of like what a standard seed looks like. He is about an hour and a half in. He has 2 tablets, but he has his Neo X-Death route established, and you can see he is now going in to X-Death's castle as well. So his is a little bit more on pace for a normal seed. We are kind of getting to see just how jetty it can be, and we can also kind of see what a normal seed is. So this maybe isn't such a bad thing that they don't have the same identical seed. And that's something we're going to work on to make sure that doesn't happen in the future, just because we would like to hopefully get to show this off a little bit more on a weekly basis for everybody. So that way you can get a full gambit of all the Final Fantasy randomizers out there here on Randomania, because they have been so great for helping us out in the Final Fantasy V Career Day community, for kind of letting us put this on. They've done excellent things for the Free Enterprise community and for the Worlds Collide community, so Randomania has just been an excellent place for really showing off randomizers and helping grow the communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Big ups to Randomania and GBF, who's been a great deal of help to us to kind of developing our racing scene over on the Career Day Discord.
Yep, he is one of the goats out there for really helping getting all these randomizers out there. He was also really big in helping another great randomizer, if you like JRPG randomizers, the Chrono Trigger Jets of Time randomizer is also another open world randomizer based off of Chrono Trigger, another classic JRPG on the SNES. And he's done a lot for helping them get their weekly races up and going. So it's getting to the point where, I mean, I've even seen there is a Illusions of Gaia randomizer out there. There's a Secrets of Mana randomizer out there right now. There is a randomizer for every good JRPG.
Yeah, every once in a while, just to kind of keep myself up to date, I go out and track down, because it's still kept pretty much up to date, the big list of randomizers.
Yes, that's where I go.
And just sort of see what's out there. And every once in a while, there'll be something out there that just surprises the heck out of me, because it's like, man, I didn't think anyone else even knew that game.
Yeah. What was the other one?
To address the question from Mokoro there, all the dance animations are vanilla. One thing you are seeing here is one of the options that most of us turn on just because it's kind of fun is randomized palettes. So the character sprites do look a bit different than they usually do. They just kind of have different colors for each character. One of the interesting things, and I know a lot of the other randos do tend to do like either custom sprites or custom palettes. One of the reasons why we don't do that in this is just because it is an entirely different sprite sheet for each character for each job. So like one character alone in this game has about as many battle sprites as most entire parties in other JRPGs.
Yeah, that is one of the things that does come with that does kind of come with the grounds of having a job system, is that the number of sprites is just hugely emphasized on how many there is. Here we've got the Three Stooges coming up for Dry, and it looks like he's just going to reset out, or maybe his stream just... okay, yeah, he's just resetting out.
Yeah, the triplets are the triplets are another one of those brutal fights. They, much like the gargoyles, will resurrect any dead members if all three of them are not effectively dead at the same time. And they have some pretty beefy elemental resistances to make it much harder to kill them off quickly.
And here's the reason why I always buy multiple Maiden's Kisses whenever I find them. Because if you run into, I think her name is I always forget how to say her name.
Halicarnassus.
Halicarnassus, yeah. She likes to put everybody as frogs, so you kind of want to make sure you have... there's two things I always buy. Maiden's Kisses and Softs, because you're always going to use those somewhere.
What's actually kind of interesting about the Halicarnasso fight is if you can manage to survive it long enough, Halicarnasso will recast Karuru and turn everybody back from frogs.
I actually have run into that one. Meanwhile, we've got Dry taking on Xdeath himself, and you can see he's putting up the golem. I was going to say, it's interesting that he still has the monk down there on Ferris, but I remember he does have Kaiser Knuckles on Ferris, so she's putting out quite a good bit of damage with her, just bare hands still.
Yeah, Monk with Kaiser Knuckles definitely does do some work. It's still definitely not really an end game job. It basically gets outclassed by a lot of World 3 jobs and equipment. It just doesn't quite keep pace. One of the biggest problems being that Kaiser Knuckle is, in fact, an accessory and not a weapon, meaning that you cannot put running shoes, the single most useful item in the entire game, on your monk if you have them using Kaiser Knuckle.
And here we're seeing, kind of like chat mentioned, just how much damage Sword Dance can put out. If you've got a decent weapon on and at a decent level, you're putting up... I mean, by the time Jedders gets to Neo Xdeath, he's probably going to be doing max damage with that Sword Dance.
Easily, yeah. So one notable thing, for those of you familiar with it does have a set of weapons, one called the Chicken Knife, one called the Brave Blade. Brave Blade basically starts maxed out on attack and gradually lowers as you run from battles. Chicken Knife works essentially the opposite, starts out minimized out on attack and gradually gains as you run from battles. In Career Day, they are both essentially set to maximum and just kind of stay there. So one of the really good things to throw on your dancer would be a Chicken Knife, because it does ludicrous amounts of damage.
Oh yeah, she will... Chicken Knife on your dancer is guaranteed max damage by the time you get to Neo Xdeath. It's going to be putting up the quad 9s. So it just makes it so good.
Interesting thing about that, Mokura brings up that Chicken Knife is a knife and thus calculated differently. So there is actually a glitch in the Super Nintendo version wherein the agility calculations for knives don't actually work as they're supposed to. That was one thing that was fixed with the GBA release of the game. It is not a bug which was fixed with Career Day, and that was by intention. Again, Cleartonic has sort of a very specific vision for Career Day, and one of those things was just doing a sort of randomized version of as vanilla a Final Fantasy V experience as possible. But an interesting note about the Chicken Knife is, to the best of my knowledge, the Chicken Knife is actually the only knife in the game where the agility calculation does work properly, specifically because it actually had the unique damage calculations due to the run boost.
And here we can see that Dry got done with his Neo Xdeath fight, so he is now in World 3. Like I said, just a reminder to everybody, we did have a little bit of a goof up where our two runners do not have the exact same seed. They did start off the same, but there was a small issue with the spoiler log where it caused the two seeds to derivate. So we are seeing effectively two different seeds here, but it just means twice the fun for us, so we get to see two different things. It's Growing Pains. This is our first race that we've been on stream before, and kind of first actual kind of race where we've had it kind of where everybody was on the same seed kind of thing. So there's a little bit of growing pains there, but it's not a big deal. You get to now you just get to see 2 races at the same, or 2 runs at the same time. So it's, you know, double your double mint fun here. So
I do find it kind of interesting, actually, that even with the divergent seeds, we're only seeing about what's going to end up being maybe a 10-minute difference for Castle Xdeath.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting there. So it must have not randomized everything. Like some stuff was still maybe same across, but just enough for it to see some difference.
Maybe not as much as that. I just think it's I think a lot of it more just has to do with again sort of the strength. Well, A, 2 great runners, absolutely, and B, just the strength of Final Fantasy V, that sort of no matter what you come across, you still end up with a lot of viable strategies to get you through the challenges the game puts out there.
Here we can see Jedders is taking, so Jedders is using a bard here, so he is using Speed Song, and he has 2 dancers who are doing, Ferris is doing the max damage, and Lena was putting up about 4,000. Here you can see he's actually got 2 bards, 2 dancers. So one of the dancers is, or one of the bards is putting up Speed Song to make him go faster, and ooh, that's gonna hurt though. He does still have one of them up, so he really needs Ferris to get off another sword dance. And the other bard was casting up Hero Song, I believe.
Yep. So to explain a little bit, Speed Song kind of works very differently in like basically every different game it shows up in. In 5 in particular, it actually speeds up the rate of ATB production. So and it's independent of haste. So it essentially stacks with the haste status. And if you are hasted and have Speed Song going, it is possible, actually. It's one of the tactics for dealing with the final boss. You can deal with Neo Xdeath before he even gets to take a turn if you've properly pumped with haste and Speed Song. Hero's Rhyme, meanwhile, effectively gives a sort of fake level boost as it goes on. The longer it runs, the further it pushes you towards max level. So eventually, if you leave the Hero Song running long enough, you will just have any physical attacker basically be doing quad 9s in damage.
And we do see Dry is already jumping into the void, so he is making his way through the void right now. So he is making quick pace to go take on Neo Xdeath.
Yeah, now depending upon what Dry runs into in these void boss spots, this may end up being a pretty fast seed. I think it may be. I think it may end up being a close to, if not sub 2.
Which that would be, I think, one of the fastest times I've ever seen.
I don't think I've ever seen a sub 2 on race settings.
So he does run into Apocrypha down here, so he's sitting at a kind of a scarier spot. But here we see, it looks like Jedders is going to do the same strategy. He's going to put up the Hero Song, put up the Speed Song, and let Ferris and Lena dance their way to victory.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a very valid strategy when you've got this set up. The big thing, again, being just that sword dance does, I want to say, an 8 times multiplier on the damage that you do, which can just be humongous. So if you're doing even in the realm of, 12, 1300 with a normal attack, you're going to be approaching max damage immediately on a sword dance.
Yep.
And with any piece of dance or gear, it's a straight up coin flip. You have a 50-50 shot of doing sword dance anytime you give the dance command.
So is it generally you want to have the rainbow vest, or do you prefer to have the tiara on?
Again, as I was explaining earlier, I prefer the rainbow dress specifically because that allows me to wear ribbon on my dancer. But realistically, any of them is good in a pinch if you just want to get that sword dance out there. So you can do the tiara, the rainbow dress, or the red shoes. Any of those will do the same thing and give you that 50-50 chance of sword dance.
Here you can see, that unfortunately Ferris goes down. Here's Xdeath is in his kind of like danger zone is where I like to call it, where he starts casting his high level like Ice 3 spells and gets 2 actions per attack, so he can get pretty scary pretty quickly. And so Ferris really needs to get off a sword stance here to kind of end this quickly. So fingers crossed he gets out. Okay, that should be it. That's gonna be another, maybe not max damage. Oh, it did not kill. That was surprising. I thought that was gonna kill. So he gets another attempt. He really needs it, and he got lucky that both attacks hit Lena. He really needs this sword dance, and that's not what he wants to see. Yep, you can see, unfortunately, Jedders is going to have to reset out of that fight. He just got kind of some bad RNG there. And that is kind of one of the downsides to running with dancers, is you are so reliant on that sword stance, and if you don't get them kind of if you get a bad string of like jitterbugs and things like that, it can be a very high variance job.
Yeah, you definitely have a lot of RNG involved at that dance command, and furthermore, you are talking a very squishy class. They do not get, high-level defense equipment, and just in general, aside from the ribbon, giving them that status immunity, they generally, if you kind of deal with a, decently strong physical boss, they are going to go down real quick.
Yep. But it does look like he got lucky there. He's gotten 2 straight sword dances off. I think if he can get 2 more off, he's going to be in a good spot here. But it's exactly like you said. You can see, I mean, they're only level, they're a fairly decent level, but they still have less than 1,000 HP. Meanwhile, a knight normally at this point is sitting around 1,300, something around there.
Yeah, mid 1,000s, easy.
Yeah. But he is getting better luck with the sword dances, though. Unfortunately, and he kind of got lucky that XS still double shotted one person instead of hitting 2 different targets, though. Catastrophe could be kind of scary here for Dryalizer.
Absolutely, especially in a situation like this. I know that Dry has a time mage. I do not know if he actually has float, though. One of the things about Catastrophe is Catastrophe will absolutely quake your party to death.
And here we're seeing it. Hopefully, let's see how much damage it's probably going to wipe his party, most of them. So one of the things you can do to get around that, because as we talked about, where this game is kind of like a puzzle, if you have a wall ring and you have the float spell, you can actually equip someone with the wall ring, cast float on them out of combat, and then that person will float. And you can see he has the wall ring, so he must have float magic. Let's see. He does, so what you'll see is you'll get to see it. He's going to cast float on everybody, but because the spell that Catastrophe does can be reflected, he's going to get stuck in this logic loop where he'll keep trying to use Gravity 100 to take the float off, and it basically just is a free win then.
Yeah, Catastrophe will absolutely focus on Gravity 100ing if you have anybody floating, over doing anything else in their AI pattern. So it's a free fight if you have both the ability to float and that any sort of reflect, whether it be a wall ring or the actual reflect status. Wall ring is usually one of the easier ways to get that going, just because they are actually a pretty common drop in CD.
Yep, and even if you don't have the wall ring, if you just have like 2 people that can cast float, you can just have 2 people alternate casting float, and as long as you're fairly tight on or fairly solid on your timing, he still gets stuck in the same thing.
Yeah, it looks like Jedders is over there struggling a bit with Castle X Death. It's totally understandable. It can be a pretty brutal fight,
especially when you're relying on the dance strats.
Yeah, you're very heavily relying on RNG there, not only for your own sword dances, but also that X Death doesn't target you unkindly.
Yeah, you are basically kind of racing. You're trying to race down his, because you can see here he's starting to cast bolt 3s and everything, and he gets lucky that neither person dies. You can definitely see he is now racing to basically get X Death down out of this phase.
That being said, kind of tied to what we were saying about Catastrophe, wall rings are also a very good strategy against Castle X Death, because they will absolutely reflect back all those nasty level 3 spells he's throwing at you.
And if you run into Omniscient as well and you have a wall ring, and you've got, a good bit of time on your hands, you can actually wall ring down Omniscient as well.
Technically speaking, there are a ton of methodologies for taking out Omniscient, just varying levels of reliability. I have, in fact, watched a multiple stream event somebody did where they basically saw how long it took a solo berserker with a mage masher to take down Omniscient.
I don't even want to imagine how long that took.
They made it through a significant portion of the novel Les Miserables.
I would not even want to imagine that. But on the plus side, Jedders did get down X-Death. It looks like he got lucky with his sword dances. So he now has World 3 unlocked. Again, just as a reminder, these 2 runners are not on the same seed, unfortunately. So Jedders is still looking for 2 tablets left. But he is in World 2, but he could unfortunately still get on into a kind of a goose chase looking for some checks. But you'll see he's probably going to do the vanilla World 3 open checks first, just so that way he doesn't need key items there. It looks like he is going to go to the forest as well with his Elder Branch.
Meanwhile, is going for one of the optional bosses in the Void here. This one just unlocks a save point midway through the Void, but was lucky enough to get what was kind of a free fight with the setup he's got. In that Tyrannosaurus there is an undead monster, so with life 2, there is a mischance on it, but if it hits, it will instant kill that monster.
Or also Phoenix Down does work as well. T-Rex is undead, so you can Phoenix Size him. This boss, however, I'm glad he's saved, because the Guardians this late are going to hit like trucks physically.
Yeah, that is a real bad spot for Guardians.
Yeah, you can see 13,000 right there with a single Guardian hit. This is where you really you're like, okay, I need to get slow off on them, and I need to get image up on either the image white spell or golem up. Anything that can help prevent as much physical damage as possible.
Yeah, even in their normal spot, which is actually I think where Jedders is right now.
It is. Yep.
The Guardians can be one of the tougher bosses in the game. They are definitely a huge roadblock for many people's first time playing through Final Fantasy V Vanilla, because they are really brutal physically and also have some really powerful spells when you get them down low enough.
They are extremely fast as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to go again.
Late Guardians is never a thing I want to see when I'm making a run.
Oh, for sure. You can see this is where, like, if you picked up the image ability, you really want to put image up, or if you have the image white spell, he gets the true edge off, though. I did forget that is a possibility that you can true edge them. It just has a lower chance of getting the true edge cast, and that's why you saw last time. He cast it, he got gun gear, and he was like, okay, I'll just reset, and I'll keep going, trying resetting until he gets the true edge off.
Likewise, same thing with the Samurai ability Slash. It does effectively the same thing as True Edge, just with effectively a mischance, essentially, in these instances.
Yeah, you can definitely see the game was not intending you to have those kind of instant kill spells this early on for where you would face them normally. Jedders does pick up his second tablet, so he just needs one more tablet as well, and then he will be fully in go mode also, so he is looking pretty good on his time as well.
I do have to say, with that brief hiccup there due to Guardians, I don't think we're going to see sub 2 out of Dry.
It'll
so that does
over.
It very heavily depends on what bosses end up here in the Halicarnasso and Twintania spots.
Yeah, because he has Halicarnasso and he still has the Twintania fights he has to do before even taking on Xdeath. So
and that's assuming he doesn't go for the optional save point.
Yep. Which he might, depending. Let's see who is at Halicarnasso. It is Twintania, so kind of a scary spot to see him, too.
I mean, to a certain extent, yes and no. It's really one spot. Yeah, it's one spot shy of Vanilla, which means in a lot of ways it kind of just is a Vanilla Twintania.
So let's see what Jedders is up to. Making sure his stream did not freeze on us. Yep, I've got to refresh the stream real quick. So he is getting some items out of the sealed castle as well. And he still had some good stuff in his also. He did have the crystal helm, and I think he had some other crystal helm and stuff like that's always good to find. Earth hammer. Yeah, I didn't think he'd pick up the earth hammer. Flame rings pick up a good pickup. Flame rings, coral rings, they work very similar to the elemental shields in Final Fantasy VI, where they'll absorb the elements and negate one of the elements as well, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
So that'll be picked up.
They do, if I recall correctly, however, give you weakness to the opposing element, so they're kind of a risk-reward mechanic there.
Yep, they're unlike in 6, where there is no risk to it. It's just like, oh, the ice shield absorbs ice, negates fire, and just does normal damage from lightning. Okay. You can twin edge or true edge Twintania as well.
So Twintania has a very specific mechanic. Normally Twintania is heavy and is immune to instant death attacks. However, as soon as Twintania goes to charging Giga Flare, they actually do become vulnerable to instant death and I believe petrification as well. So it could have gone with either Odin or Shote there.
I do remember. Oh, so Jedders has is either diving into the void to get some of the item checks that are in there. I'm wondering if that's what he's doing, or if he did find his 4th tablet. Let me actually go. It looks like he still only has 3 out of 4 tablets, unless he just has not marked his last one. Oh, did I freeze his? looks like it accidentally froze his stream. There we go. So maybe he forgot to mark down one of his tablets, but
possibly forgot to mark the starting tablet, maybe?
maybe that might be what it is. Because otherwise he would not be... I can't imagine you would dive into, especially this far into it, just looking for items.
Yeah, no, it seems a really odd choice to make there.
Dry has
Ooh,
run
got the
into
Masamune there.
Antlion.
Yeah, over on Jedders' side, just found the Masamune and put that on Lena, which means now both dancers with that sword dance ability are going to be doing probably, if not always, max, at least close to max damage. And also, Masamune with its special property does mean that Lena is always going to go first.
Yep. Great sword to find. It definitely is. Even more so on something like a dancer than like a... I guess it still is good for Samurai as well, because you can get that guild toss off right away first. But yeah, Masamune is a really good sword. Excalibur is really good. I'm trying to think of the other. Obviously, Ragnarok is really, really solid. What are some of the other top weapons you always want to be looking for? Earthhammer can be okay.
Chicken Knife and Brave Blade, as we mentioned before. Chicken Knife a little bit more so than Brave Blade. Also, other really good knives. Now, the great thing about knives is that almost every class in the game can use them. So in a way, knives have a really high priority for me. So in addition to the Chicken Knife, there's also Man-Eater, which is kind of unique in that it actually can only normally be equipped by dancers and freelancers, but is a really powerful knife, as well as a couple other good knives out there. Other things, a little bit more situational. There are things like the Apollo Harp, which is a bard weapon that has a unique ability that does 8 times damage to both dragons and undead, which makes it really useful. It's actually part of one of the major strategies for dealing with Shinryu in the vanilla game.
Some of the others, obviously the Yoichi bow, which has, I believe, an increased crit chance on the bow.
Correct.
Yoichi bow is really good.
Yeah, and bows are already generally pretty high crit chance weapons, where Yoichi bow is, I would honestly say, I don't know what the actual specific math behind it is, but I would honestly say I get about a 50-50 crit.
Oh yeah, it crits way more than you think. As far as like Berserker weapons goes, the Rune Edge is really good if you have a high level magic ability you can equip onto your Berserker. Giant's Axe can be okay because I think that does increase damage to heavy bosses, doesn't it?
Correct.
And then like Earthhammer is okay. It can cast Quake occasionally, so that can be solid. Trying to think of some of the other really, really good ones here. Always happy to find. Obviously, like crystal armor, crystal helms, things like that are always good.
Yeah, I mean, if we're venturing outside the realm of weapons, obviously there's ribbons, which are always really, especially if you either have Dancer so it can earn the ability or find the ability to equip ribbon, thereby letting you put it on any class.
That will... to save?
Oh no.
Because he's all the way back to just having 2 tablets, I think I saw.
Yeah, I might have missed that if that happened.
I think he wiped to something inside the void, and this, boys and girls, is why you always save, because like if you forget to save, that's a very far setback. Yeah, because he's all the way at the Carlabalos, or Carlabos?
Yeah, the Guardian spot.
Yeah.
Carlabal, yeah.
That is really unfortunate, because he was on time for a really good seed time as well.
Yeah, that's a real shame. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like in my runs, there have been times if I haven't made it to the midpoint save in the void, I will run all the way back out of the void to drop a save before doing a boss check. If I'm feeling like I'm not like, if I don't have something like S tier, like a Guild Toss or something on that level, I will run all the way back out of the void just to drop a save, just so I don't have to repeat fights.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah, the time. Yeah, he's in final section of the void. This should be interesting to see.
Yep, I think he's got a pretty good time, pretty good setup for it. It'll be interesting to see how many of these chests that he checks, because if he gets a monster in a box here, there can be some pretty scary stuff here.
Yeah, I usually, if I was in the state that Dry's in right now, I would actually probably be skipping the chest here in void. I can't think of much I could find that would improve what I've got going. I mean, he's already got Ragnarok on his knight. He's got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, he's in a really good spot. It looks like Jedders, unfortunately, is having a rough go kind of now with his dancers, unfortunately. Looks like he's going to just try to physical attack, and thankfully he gets it down. But looks like we've got Dry doing his kind of his last-minute checks before going to take on. I don't know if he's going to do the extra boss. I can't imagine he would. But it looks like he's getting out Blue Mage, so he must have some good spells and something he's planning here to be doing.
He did just pick up Mighty Guard from a chest a couple spots back. So
and that
is one of the top tier spells. Period. Of,
yep.
Regardless of magic type.
Because I don't think he has Shell for the Almagest, so in case it goes off, Mighty Guard does put Shell up on you, which will help. Yeah, he's got Blue Mage, a Time Mage, looks like a Knight, and I didn't see what else.
I'm kind of curious here, actually, putting Sing on that Blue Mage there, if Dry is going to go for the stall out on Ted to try and max out Speed Song and Hero Song before moving on to Ned.
That might be. I do know he's told me multiple times that's a strategy he uses. It does look like Jedders is heading back into the Void, so he must have gotten his other tablet that he needed. Is diving back in. Hopefully he saves this time before going in again. But yeah, it looks like what he's planning on doing is maybe having his Blue Mage basically just be a supporter where it's going to put up the Mighty Guard and it's just going to sing.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a valid strategy. Honestly, if you are lacking a lot of other tools, it looks like he is considering maybe going. Nope, backing off from that optional save there.
He is gonna take this boss on
nope.
though. He finds Shoat.
Nope. Yeah. Ooh, that can be rough.
Yeah, I don't think you want to see Shoat there.
Yeah, clearly Dry did not.
Yeah. That is going to be a lot of, because, I mean, obviously, I don't know if he's going to be, as far as, so, I guess let's go ahead and start talking a little bit about what we're expecting to see, and we call them Ted and Ned. Ted being Tree X Death, and Ned being Neo X Death. So in Phase 1, which is Ted, the Tree Form phase, he has a few different things he can cast, the biggest one being White Hole, which instantly kills you and petrifies you. Now, there is a few ways you can prevent it. If you have a ribbon, that does stop it. The other big one is if you have Aegis Shield. Aegis Shield prevents petrification, so effectively prevents the entire spell. What are some other ways that you can get stop Whitehole from instant killing?
If I'm remembering correctly, and I'm not 100% on this one, but I think it's a way. It's a strategy I never use because it carries its own obvious risks. But the Bone Mail can also stop Whitehole from working.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I very rarely... I don't think I've ever used Bone Mail because you're right. I mean, there's just so many things where you're like, this is a pretty big risk here.
Yeah, so to explain a little bit about that, what Bone Mail does, it's a armor with an incredibly high defense. It's actually armor you find pretty early on in vanilla, but it looks like Jedders is heading back out of the Void, so maybe he didn't have all of his tablets? Not
maybe
sure.
Maybe he was just getting some experience and some
items.
Some items, yeah, maybe. Because I didn't think he would be off on his tracker.
Yeah, so the Bone Mail, it's got really high defense. You find it pretty early on in the game, and it has equivalent defense to some of the mid-tier like end game armors. But the other thing it does is it essentially sets whatever character is wearing it to undead status. So they cannot be healed by healing magic. They cannot be resurrected in battle by either magic or Phoenix Downs. It is a very risky strategy. Yep. But with that undead status, it does provide a lot of immunities to things.
Looks like Jedders is going down to the trench. So in the trench, you do get 3 extra hints that are the only hints available in World 3. And also, there's quite a few good shops down here. So he is going to be doing that. And we are getting ready for the tree fight for Dryalizer's side. So I'm going to see if I can switch the music over to get the Neo X Death fight music going for us.
Yeah, so you may have caught it as Dry went through that last teleporter there. There was a little crystal off to the side that is not there in the vanilla game. That is how you access those portal bosses we were talking about earlier, those optional and different end game bosses to give you a different experience than that Ned fight.
Yep, and here we can see Ted himself. This is Tree Xdeath, and there's that white hole we're talking about. You'll see right away it is going to kill his knight and petrify it. So not only do you have to spend time getting him back up, you then have to spend another turn healing the petrification status off. That is probably the hardest part about this phase.
Yeah, if nothing else, that is why when you mentioned earlier about like if you see like softs, you want to pick up 20 of them. If nothing else, white hole is the reason.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And this is honestly one of the reasons why I say I think Xdeath might be one of the, out of the 4, 5, and 6, one of the hardest final bosses. I mean, he just has so many abilities that just like one shot, and it's just like, well, cool. Now I gotta spend 2 turns getting this person back up.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously during this era they were very big on the multi-phase, final boss. Yep. But when it really comes down to it, Zeromus Zemus is kind of a pushover if you know what you're doing. And, Kefka's final form can be a real challenge, but first form of Kefka is not really all that threatening. Tree Xdeath can party wipe you pretty much just as easily as Neo can.
Yes, as somebody who has wiped multiple times on this, I can attest. Where you can see right now he's already getting stuck in this. Like, okay, now I gotta get this person up and spend another turn using a soft on it to get him up. So he's kind of, you can very much get stuck in this loop where the only thing you're doing is Phoenix downing and softing people to be able to keep them up. But he is. Now, mind you, he did.
Yeah, and he did get the song started on his Blue Mage, so it is gradually going to turn in his favor, kind of no matter what happens here, as long as that Blue Mage can stay up.
And here you're seeing some high-level strats. He actually uses Lena to attack Ferris to get the song to stop, because I guess he feels he's probably at a good spot. So now that he can put up Mighty Guard as well. And we did see he must have somebody with a ribbon or with an Aegis shield on, because we've seen Xdeath cast White Hole and it just did nothing, which means somebody on the team is immune.
I believe Ferris might actually have the Aegis shield, which is also a good strategic place to put it. Just because if you're relying on that Sing strategy, you absolutely want to make sure that Singer stays up.
I think.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, because that heal just dropped her.
Interesting. Yeah, you can see it. There it is, the bone mail right there. I'm wondering if he's going to keep it on. Or no, it looks like he's going to switch over. I'm wondering if
that is one of the things.
Equipped it.
Yeah, he probably didn't do that on purpose, because the bone mail being one of the cursed items. So there are 3 cursed items in the game. Technically there's a 4th one, but it's dummied out. And each of them, no matter what other equipment you have, they will be the auto-equip if you do Optimum. Just because of the way that they're weighted intentionally to try and trick you into not noticing and keeping them on. Bone mail, realistically, is probably the least threatening of them, but still, as you saw there, can definitely cause a unfortunate accident.
Yeah, and with how this game works, unlike in Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise, where you sometimes want to find the cursed ring so you can use agility anchor strategies, you really can't do that here, so you are kind of forced to kind of be like, okay, well, we're just going to go, I'm going to have to outspeed them or use slow on them. I can't really kind of manipulate it. Meanwhile, Jedder's fighting another one of the more annoying bosses, and that's Carbuncle. Just because he goes into this phase where for the first couple parts of the turn, you can't hurt him at all, and he just gets to cast like Bolt 2, Ice 2, and then he'll go into his heal phase where suddenly he can be hurt, and then you just gotta try to nuke him down as fast as you can.
That being said, Carbuncle is another one of those ones where when he is in a certain phase, he is vulnerable to, I don't think he's vulnerable to instant death, but is definitely vulnerable to petrification.
I think he can be true-edged.
Okay, I'm never quite sure on that. I haven't quite memorized that particular spreadsheet yet. I still have to check it for most bosses.
Yeah, that's one of those spreadsheets you kind of like, it is one of those you just have open, because like, there's so many bosses that you don't think would be able to be instant killed. You're like, oh, interesting, he can be. So it looks like Dry's going back in his first second attempt. There's the big guard from the Ferris.
Yeah, getting that up before the song is probably the better way to do it, just so you don't have to interrupt and kind of take things out of the way here, because that's going to help a lot with kind of everything going on there.
Yep. So it does look like, unfortunately, Dry is going to be over the 2-hour mark. He was not going to get that sub 2-hour seed that we thought was possible, just because he has run into some tougher bosses. Looks like Jedders is kind of finally making some progress on Carbuncle, because Carbuncle's being a big bully and staying in his you can't hurt me phase. And I think this is a little bit later on. This is in, oh, that should do it there, yeah. A lot of experience coming out of that too, since that is in the trench.
Yeah, between that unfortunate placement of Guardian and the bone mail mishap there, that probably cost Dry the sub 2. Although even then, might not have been sub 2 when he came into TED for the first time.
Now, Jedders did find something that we all like to find. He did find the Mirage Radar, though, which is required to go face Muhammad, but also Mirage Radar has 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 shops that all have, like, the highest tiering.
Yeah, so the town of Mirage in World 3 is the only unique World 3 shop and requires a key item in order to access it, but has pretty much nothing but top tier spots in it.
Yeah, it's Mirage Radar and the Moogle suit that you're always happy when you find him. And you can see he found the Time Mage crystal there, so I think he picked that up, because like we've mentioned, Time Mage is a very, very powerful job. There's Black Mage, he found X Magic in there as well.
Yeah, X Magic is a huge get. So that Red Mage generally is not exactly a great job in Final Fantasy V. It gets the ability to cast both white and black magic, but unfortunately those cut off right before the level where you would get the spells you would really want to have.
Yeah.
But the one thing that Red Mage does have going for it is that its top level ability you unlock is X Magic. Now, it takes the most AP of any ability in the game to get, but for good reason, because equipping X Magic will allow you to cast 2 of any spell you know.
Yep. That means double Bahamut's, that means double Life 2s, that means pretty much like all the big stuff. And I will say Red Mage in the beginning, especially more so if you have tiered rewards on, but Life, he finds Life 2 there as well. That's another big find for him. You can tell he's trying to find what he wants to sell off. But Red Mage in the beginning can be pretty solid because it does give you a way to be able to cast like early game Life and Cure spells without having to use up 2 slots, but it does kind of scale off pretty quickly.
Yeah, so one thing you may have caught there before Jedders went into this shop here is to talk to an NPC there. As I mentioned, the optional super bosses Omega and Shinryu do not have their vanilla weaknesses, resistances, etc. There are some NPCs similar to how you have the hints for key items and things like that. There are some NPCs you can talk to that'll actually let you know some of those things for those super bosses if you were choosing to pursue that. Yeah. Again, it's not a common thing because most of us that run Career Day don't really bother with them. But if you were trying to do a more casual run, like obviously it's not something you're going to pursue in a race unless somebody for some reason hated themselves and set it as a condition for the race.
Yeah.
But you will not find me doing a Triple Crown Career Day race anytime soon. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I don't think I'd do that either. That's a path to take. But yeah, he's finding a lot of good stuff in there. Like you said, he found the Holy 2, Life 2, he found the Holy, found Shoten there. So there's some pretty good stuff. Always, Mirage Raider is always a really fun place to get your Mirage Raider. You're just like, alright, there's going to be good stuff here. There is some hints that he can get as well.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point with X Magic, literally any spell he finds is power.
Yep. I think he is going to go take on the... Of course, he gets stuck behind that one guy. I always get stuck behind that guy, too. I mean, he's just, like, waiting for this idiot to move. He's probably going to go do, I assume, the Bahamut check next. Just because you got to get that black chocobo that's down here.
Yeah, it looks like that's the way he's heading.
Yeah, I don't know why he's trying to go into the void. Oh, he must have thought the wrong door. I do that all the time, too. So here we see Xdeath is going on to his second void, so the void begins to devour Xdeath, and here we get the big baddie himself, Neo Xdeath. And you can definitely tell that Final Fantasy, like 5 and 6 really liked like this like boss that looks like this amalgamation of a whole bunch of different things. Because like Neo Xdeath is quite something to look at.
Yeah, well, especially with Neo Xdeath, there's a whole explanation for it in that, you know, not to spoil too much in the game, but basically Xdeath's origin is he is a tree that they just essentially kept shoving demons and monsters in.
Yep.
And lo and behold, when you spend, hundreds, if not thousands of years shoving all sorts of evil things into a tree, eventually the tree turns evil. And yeah, somebody points out in chat, a lot of the bosses, Final Fantasy XIV is sort of this humongous love letter to the whole series, and they did Neo Exdeath in there, and he looks pretty much 100% accurate to this. It's really good looking.
I've actually been meaning to get back into Final Fantasy XIV because I've also heard they did Kefka really justice in the raid as well for Kefka.
Yeah, I have not reached that part in 14 yet, but I've definitely seen other people go through those kinds of raids. But yeah, no, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Final Fantasy V is probably my favorite Final Fantasy game. Period. Seeing what they did with Ned in 14, I was happy, and that's just like we said in chat. Like I had a really high expectation bar to clear, and they managed it.
Yeah,
part of why I'm actually really happy that Yoshi P and his team are the ones being tapped to do Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, it was really one of those things that in Final Fantasy 14, you can definitely, I mean, like you said, it was a love letter to hey, all these cool bosses we want to go back into. I mean, because there's so many iconic bosses. I mean, as much as I love 5, I still think Kefka is probably the most iconic boss they've ever had in Final Fantasy, just because he's the only boss that actually ever won, ever.
Yep.
And there's a great series, if you've ever seen it, called Final Fantasy in a Nutshell, where it's basically parody videos of the entire Final Fantasy series. And there's multiple times where everybody all the villains go to Kefka, and Kefka is showing all the villains how you actually win. He's just like, yeah, and you just kind of kill them all and break the world. It's as easy as that. They're like, so you don't tell them your plan? He's like, no, you never tell them your plan.
Yeah.
And one of them raises his hands. He's like, and this is how you win without time travel. And he looks at the Final Fantasy 1 boss, and he looks at because that whole mess, Final Fantasy 1. It's time warp. You can tell this is very much the reason why they're we can never do time travel again. But yeah, so he is. I think he got the Almagest section down. I didn't see if he got showed off on it.
Yeah, it can be sometimes difficult to tell. So as I mentioned, Neo Exdeath has 4 parts, but there's no actual visual difference when a given part dies.
Yeah.
The only way you would know is you would no longer be able to target that part. The other trick to Neo Exdeath is, so there are 4 parts. There are 2 you want to take out quickly. There's the Almagest part, and there is the Grand Cross part. Grand Cross being a super version of White Hole, where it basically just kind of tries to throw every status effect in the game at you and see what sticks. So it can be really pretty brutal. But once you get to the point where you've taken out those 2 parts, then you want to start balancing damage between the remaining 2 parts, because if it gets down to a part left, he will just start spamming. I want to say pretty much every spell under the book, but in particular, top-level spells, I believe specifically Meteo.
Yeah, Meteo is the one he likes to really push out there. Here you can also see he is using Old to reduce the damage. He's also using things like Mind Blast to paralyze one of the sections. You can actually use Mind Blast, and it does decent damage as well, but it paralyzes that section so it never gets to act either. He is going to get off the Delta attack onto the butts, though. But yeah, you can definitely see this is not an easy section of the fight. I mean, he takes some work to be able to take him down. Meanwhile, it looks like Jedders is still looking for, I think, his 4th tablet. So he is unfortunately getting stuck in a bit of a rabbit hole looking for that last one.
Yeah, sometimes you just get those seeds where that 3rd tablet does not want to show itself.
Yep. On the plus side, though, he's pretty high much level than any boss he runs into. It's just going to be kind of a cakewalk. But yes, to Betty One's point, there is dummy sections as well, and if you use X-Fight, he'll hit the dummy section. So that is why, surprisingly, X-Fight is not good for this final phase fight, because he doesn't hit the sections you need him to. But he is just getting that holy damage off.
It can be tempting to bring it in, because you think oh, it's great, I can swing 4 attacks and it'll be awesome. But then, yeah, no, he He is specifically designed to make that not a great strategy.
Looks like Jedders is running into the very first boss of the game, Wing Raptor, so he should be able to make pretty quick work of that. Wing Raptor still does not do anything fancy. He just closes up his wings and uses the Wind Slash, so he should have an easy fight there.
Yeah, even in a late spot, really all Wing Raptor has going for him is whatever that spot's HP is. It doesn't really do a whole lot aggressively.
He does not. And it looks like Jedders did find White Wind, though. It looks like he also has Slash, too, so it looks like he's trying to use Slash to kill it off. We got, meanwhile, Dry's putting back up that big guard because the shell ability is going to really reduce. It doesn't look like he's killed the Almagest section, actually. So
nope,
the big guard is going to prevent a lot of that damage.
Yeah, when you see Neo X-Death shaking like that, that's the visual indicator that an Almagest is incoming.
Yep, and it does quite a bit of damage. I'm wondering why he keeps trying to cast Old. Is there some section that is weak to Old?
Possibly. I think it might be the Almagest section, actually, again, is vulnerable to Old, which can also significantly... Yeah, if that is the case, then Old would significantly reduce the amount of damage that Almagest does.
It must be. It must have a pretty low chance of hitting, because he keeps trying it every single time, too.
I mean, absolutely. If it is vulnerable at all, I'm sure it's a absolutely minuscule hit chance. Because one of the things is that Neo X-Death, to my recollection, has a absolutely monstrous magic evade.
He has stopped shaking, though, but I didn't see the Almagest go off. Did he maybe kill it before it went off?
Possibly.
Interesting.
Again, it's one of those things that's kind of hard to tell because there's no real visual indicator at all.
No, he hit it right there with Holy, so yeah, I have no idea why it didn't cast. It's that. Very, very interesting. You can see even some of us are still like trying to learn all the mechanics of Neo X-Death, so.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like,
there
for
goes
me,
right
just
we
a
were
psych
right
out.
The first time.
Yeah, as someone, I've probably played through Final Fantasy V variously between Vanilla, 4-Job Fiesta, and Career Day. At this point, easily in the realm of 100 times, and even I still don't really know everything about Ned.
Yeah, I agree. Ned is one heck of a boss. That's why, I don't think people realize, just how hard Ned can be at times. I mean, even with very good team setups, he's not a joke. I mean, you go into that fight and you better be ready. Otherwise, you could just lose, your run right there if you're in a race setting with them.
You know what it very probably is, now that I'm thinking on it, for that Almagest, is probably just due to just how absolutely, massively boosted Dry's team is from all that speed song during the TED sequence.
Okay.
Probably was able to get some rounds in between the shaking, stopping, and the Almagest triggering, which is not a thing you normally see, because normally it's a quick turnaround there.
We did see he did actually get the Old off on it, though, so he finally landed, but now you're seeing his life is slowly dropping very quickly across his entire party because of the Almagest ability. So Lena's going to drop here in a second. Down she goes. He's going to have to get some healing off quick, though. Looks like I guess maybe he's got healing on somebody else. This is interesting to see a strategy here.
Yeah, over on Jetter's side, it looks like he ended up with Crayclaw in the Bahamut spot, which is kind of interesting. You can see even Jedders is trying to figure out, what do I even do here?
You can see he is trying to get the slash to work, and he's also trying to get, he is still getting good sword dances off, but he's also trying to get Deathclaw, the blue magic ability, which is another one of the really, really good blue mage abilities as well. Like Deathclaw puts you at 1 HP if it hits. Obviously Mighty Guard that we're seeing, there's quite a few really, really good. He's got White Wind as well. But you can tell he's kind of going down the list and like, okay, what blue mage ability works? He's going to put up Flash, which unfortunately that doesn't hit either, so he's just going to have to kind of sword dance his way through it.
Sometimes that's all you got.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully sword dance does a lot of damage, so. But he does have white, I mean, I think he's keep getting trying that. He does have White Wind as available as well, though, so he does have some pretty good healing off the blue mage also. Down it goes. Okay, so yeah, sword dancing his way to victory.
Yeah, it's another one of those fortunate instances where even in a very high tier spot,
He got his third
Crayclaw
tablet,
does
though.
excellent.
Yeah, so he's in
That
go
is,
mode, too.
yeah, that is a great get. And in a lot of ways, I feel like, time aside, Jedders is almost in a much better
spot.
go mode position
Yeah.
than Dry was when he hit go mode, just due to if nothing else, that immense pile of almost all the best Blue Mage spells in the game.
Exactly, and this is why like a lot of the top runners also really like Blue Mage. I know we say that like you have to find all this, but like there's just so many good blue magic spells that it really becomes, oh, do you need healing? Well, he's got White Wind. Oh, do you need damage? I'm sure, hopefully he has Brain Melt or whatever it's called, Mind Blast. Oh,
Mind Blast.
Do you need physical damage regression? Maybe he's got Mighty Guard. It's just because one of those classes that can really do almost everything.
Yeah, I mean, even very early on, Goblin Punch
Yes.
in and of itself is a great way to sidestep a lot of weapons with some unfortunate side effects.
And it looks like he even used his Light Staff to cast Holy as well, so you can tell that I think Dry must believe he's fairly close, so he's trying to keep the damage up and quick, or because he's running out of like healing spells or something like that. But to use the Light Staff just like that.
Yeah, it looks like most of his party may be running fairly low on MP, at least the ones that actually do casting types.
Yeah, I think so too. That's what it's got to be. Yeah, you can see, I don't think he has any elixirs either. So he's going to be coming down to just physically attacking here. Which is not a spot you want to be in. Oh,
Yeah, it looks like...
that is GG for Dryalizer with an official time of 2:14:47. Now, I'm not going to mark him as the winner just because, like we said earlier...
this ended up not being a race, essentially.
Yeah, unfortunately not being a race. But I will mark down his time. Now it looks
checking in the race time. It looks like IB actually came in with a 2:07.
So I'm wondering if Jedders then is the one who has the different seed from everybody else. Then maybe he clicked the spoiler log or not.
Possibly. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, we'll figure that out
after
offside.
this. But I have to say, I am actually kind of surprised at that. We were kind of talking about it earlier. Actually, even... Okay, yeah. Well, it looks like IB just confirmed Jedders is the one with the different seed. So Jedders is the one that most likely did not properly set spoiler log. Yeah, it was actually kind of funny thinking on it, because even just before this race started, we were actually chatting with it specifically with IB, and we were saying, like, yeah, whoever comes in first, and we were all like, yeah, it's probably going to be Dry.
Yeah, Dry is probably one of the most senior racers or runners in here. He has a lot of game knowledge on it. But I do know IB Karma has been putting in a lot of time. He's telling me he's been doing about a seed daily.
Yeah, I've seen IB practicing just about every day, and obviously it paid off this time around.
Let me see if we can get Dryalizer in here for an interview. Meanwhile, Jedders should be making his way pretty quickly over to Path of the Void. Yep, we can see he's there now. Now let's see if we can get Dryalizer, if he's available for an interview.
Just to address real quick, Seed of the Week is something that exists in the pinned comments in the Races channel on the Discord. And if you're joining that Discord and interested in joining in to take part in these races, please go ahead and let me know. My name on there is just Bograt, like you see on screen here. I can give you the racer role so that if we ever need to make announcements about things, you can be alerted.
And we are joined by Dryalizer. GG's, buddy.
Yeah, welcome. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. That was quite a seed.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, you were on a absolute jet there for a while.
Yep.
I'm sure you're just now seeing it. So unfortunately, you guys were not on the same seed as Jedders. We think something came up there. He is in his path, although he's not too far behind. He is in the Path of the Void right now. But I think something we'll have to talk about last thing. I think somebody must accidentally click the spoiler log that must cause the seeds to derivate. But yeah, that was a heck of a jet seed, as Bagras said.
Yeah, that's a shame that we have been having. It's tricky when you generate a seed, I was worried that something like this might happen just because, well, when I was practicing yesterday, it was acting weird, but I don't think that's what it was. I think it's what you said. But, I mean, entertaining either way, right? Like the people got to see two very different seeds.
Exactly. You got to see two different seeds, two different parties. A lot of people have been enjoying watching the randomizer. So, Dry, I guess, what is one of the things I want to ask you? What is your favorite thing about this randomizer?
Favorite thing about it? There's so many good things about it. I think my favorite thing. Okay. Well, one of my favorite things is that you can. In vanilla, you often don't have a chance to exploit certain weaknesses that the bosses have. Like, it's in their code, but there isn't really much opportunity to, say, cast Break on Siren. But in the randomizer, you can do that because the bosses are all shuffled. Mm-hmm. And you can get a hold of Break before you might run into her. So it just opens up new strategies for boss fights. That's probably my favorite part, although there's lots of other cool things too, like, there's all kinds of different settings, so you can tweak it to be just the way that you like. And there's 4-job mode, which I'm a big fan of the 4-job Fiesta. I do that every year, so it's like rando 4-job Fiesta whenever I fire that up. So lots of good stuff.
Yeah, me and Bograt were both saying one of the cool things about the bosses in this, and you kind of got to show this on a few of them, that it is very much a puzzle. Bograt said it best, I think, a puzzle with a JRPG kind of facade to it kind of thing.
Absolutely. I reset out of a lot of fights so that I could just set up better and come in and win easily because I had the right stuff.
Yeah, like we got to see the Mute Blade Omniscience. We got to see the Float Wall Ring for Catastrophe. We got to see just a bit insanely how powerful the Odin Esper is because it kills like half the bosses one shot in this game.
Even some that are way later than you'd think it would work on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I apologize for my bad ending. Had the bone mail on. I haven't had that happen in a while. I don't even remember picking up the bone mail. I have no idea where I got it.
So
I assumed Ferris was equipped with something. Oh yeah, it always auto-equips because it has such high defense, but I just didn't see it when I picked it up because I didn't think I owned it at all.
Yeah.
But then when Ferris died, I decided I needed to reset out of that. And I didn't really have many things that I wanted for the end fight. So I went with the Bard speed strat and just made my team insanely fast. You probably noticed that Ned just didn't get very many turns against me, and that's how I beat him, is just with tons of turns.
We know
very slow, but
MP short at the end, though.
Yeah, I ran out of Mind Blast, and then I killed him, luckily.
Yeah, we were just like, did he really just get it off before basically he wipes because of no MP?
Yeah.
Well, I could have... I was so fast that I could have alternated every other turn Mind Blasting with Ferris earlier in the fight, and then I would have saved MP that way, but I didn't expect that I would run out.
Yeah, we
it
were
only
even
costs
noticing
like 7 MP or something to cast Mind Blast.
Yeah, it's not a very expensive spell. It's one of the other sort of advantages of blue is a lot of its spells are way cheap for what they do. But yeah, as far as the speed thing goes, we were even noticing it actually kind of confused us briefly because I wasn't even thinking about it. But it looks like for a bit there, you were going so fast, you actually got in a few turns between Ned stopping shaking and actually firing off the Almagest.
Yeah, that's right. The Ned stopped his shaking because, I mean, normally that goes by pretty quickly. But in the case of me being so fast, he was like just still for a long time before the Almagest went off.
Yeah, we actually thought you killed that section before it went off, and we're like, oh, nope, there it goes, okay.
Yeah, I also messed up. I should have made Galif a white mage and put Diamond 6 on him. Instead, I had him as time, and I thought that he had higher level white, so he couldn't really contribute much in terms of damage. Instead, so what I did was I tried to ult the Almagest part, and it missed many times, so he didn't really have much to do either.
So I'm guessing that
if you can hit that, it's
susceptible.
Yeah, it's susceptible to ult, but the chance of hitting is pretty low, like 10 or 12%. And if you can ult it, its Almagus damage decreases to about half once it reaches all the way down to level 1. So I was just trying to, do something useful with Galuf because he basically had nothing. I could have used Meteo, but I don't like the uneven damage that it does against Ned. Like, it hits dummy targets and stuff, so, yeah.
It can be a big risk on Ned where you want to end out dealing even damage across the last couple parts.
Exactly, yep. So, I have to say I was... most of the seed felt pretty good, except for the end.
Yeah.
And also, there were some times when I could have I could have blazed forward, but I held back and got more experience and levels. Like when I was going up Exdef's Castle, I killed at least one boss there. I think it was a panda, because I wanted experience. And then I got the piggies, and I said, forget it. I'm not dealing with you guys.
Yeah, we saw that.
That's IB was actually just asking in chat if you skipped the Goga fight in Xdeath, and you went into that fight, saw it was the triplets, and were like, nope.
Yeah, if I had something good to deal with them, I don't think I didn't have a white mage yet at that time, so I didn't want to deal with them. So I kind of had that freedom where I had a lot of the things that I needed, so I could skip an annoying boss if I wanted to, as long as I knew it wasn't required.
Yeah, I gotta say, pace-wise, we were keeping an eye on that timer, and until that unfortunate late Guardian fight, and then the bone mail mishap, you were dang near on pace for a sub 2, actually.
Yeah, I really wanted to get the sub 2, and I thought that I might... no, I don't think even the first time I expected to get it, because I knew it was going to be a long fight. I wanted to get like a PB in this under these settings. My PB is 208, so I was going for that.
Yep. You were real close. I think probably without that unfortunate bone mail accident, you probably would have gotten it.
Yeah, at one point I was. Yeah, at one point I was. I thought I was in go mode before I actually was. I tried to go into Exdef's Castle early before I had anti-barrier or bracelet, I think. So I had to keep searching for those. But that all worked out, and the rest, I don't know. I think I made some other mistakes too, but I was nervous, and my movement was also bad because of nerves. So considering all that,
it was a great run.
It was a pretty quick seed.
I mean, still got a better time than my PB. So
yeah, same here.
I can't say anything to that.
Well, of course, tablet luck is probably the most salient factor of all. So
absolutely.
Whenever you look at this, just remember that I had like 4 tablets before I could even enter Exdef's Castle.
Yeah, and we were saying sometimes jet seeds like that though can be even harder just because you're not used to having like, oh, I'm in go mode, but I'm way under leveled for where I normally possibly would be in a normal seed.
Yep, they are. With them yet. I don't get that many jet seeds, and so when I do get one, I panic a little bit. But it worked out okay. I wonder if some of our fellow, Discord members who are playing this seed, which one they played.
So Ivy Karma was on the same seed as you were. I think Jedders might be the only one that's on the different seed. We were saying that's one of the things we'll have to talk to Clear Tonic about and be like, okay, is it because somebody picked with the spoiler log and the rest of us picked without, and that's what caused the... it looks like Jedders is probably the only one that was on the other seed. So,
okay, all right. Well, that's kind of good, I guess. At least we have some comparison for the other people. And I also noticed that Karma beat me, so he's doing really well.
Yeah, we were talking to him before the race, and Karma said he'd been literally been doing a seed a night, so he is really picking up how fast he's been learning this game.
Yes, he picked it up very quickly. I've been watching him, and he's gotten good very quickly, so good for him.
Yeah, meanwhile, there's me, who you come into my seed, watching me struggle bust through a seed, so...
Oh, well, there's a lot to learn. Like, sometimes you just gotta sit down and watch a few of these all the way through and pick out some strats. There's so much to learn. Like, I'm still learning new things about this game, and I've been playing it for years.
Yeah, it
It's
definitely
amazing.
feels like there's infinite strategies to really learn from things. Unfortunately, we're watching Jedders kind of have some rough luck. He has Twintania at a panda spot, and he is running a double bar, double dancer strategy. And unfortunately, our good friend Twintania likes to cast Tidal Wave and just one-shots the entire team. So hopefully he'll be able to get some good stuff going.
Very, very dangerous boss, Twintania, if you don't have an insta-kill. So I'm not necessarily prepared, and I'm not necessarily going to succeed. But if you want, I could potentially load up my last save and try and fight the portal boss, if anybody's interested in seeing that.
If you would want to, that's completely up to you. We can watch Jetter Seed if you want to load that up and give that a try, just to show off to people what some of the portal bosses look like. I think they'd probably appreciate that, but I don't want to force you to do anything that you're just like, I'm not feeling it right now. So.
Well, I have no idea. It's probably going to be a difficult fight because I don't have a lot of good stuff. But if it's the one boss that I would like to see, I might be able to handle it.
I will leave that completely up to you. I've still got your stream up, so if you want to give it a shot, I think people would be interested in seeing it, but no pressure.
Yeah, I mean, we had mentioned about the portal bosses. It is something we brought up. But yeah, I mean, I would say if you're up for it, I'd absolutely love to show that off.
I am up for it, but before I go, let me just thank you guys for organizing this and for restreaming and for doing commentary and all that amazing stuff.
Oh, we appreciate doing it. It's hopefully we'll get to do it more often as well in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it sounds like we're finally getting some momentum with this, a little community going, and we have a lot of people with a lot of different ideas of different settings that we might want to use for racing, so we should be able to mix it up each time we do it, maybe, or every other time or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to our community growing and our sort of race setups growing as well.
Yeah, like we said, this is by no means the fixed race flags. This is just kind of the initial, hey, we all kind of agree to these, and we'll see how kind of what our times look like for these. But this stuff could change. Like, I know one of the things I've been possibly talking that I want to bring up is, like, to kind of help out make the thief job a little bit better, maybe we start randomizing what's stealable off of, like, randomize the stealable items to kind of give it a little bit of spice to it, and see what people think of that. But,
sure.
It looks like Jedders is unfortunately still on that Twintania spot, and it looks like he's going to try Break Blade, Mystic Knight. I'm not sure if that instant kills Twintania or not.
So that again is like I was saying earlier. It's if you can manage to last to when Twintania is charging Giga Flare, Twintania becomes vulnerable.
So it looks like that's what he's going for. Unfortunately, he's been having some bad luck with just Tidal Wave, like. And Twintania likes to cast multi-hitting spells as well.
Yeah, between Atomic Ray and Tidal Wave, it's a hard-hitting, massive boss.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he really doesn't have too much great healing either, it looks like, currently, with this current setup. And this might be, unfortunately, one of those things where, because he's on a different seed than everybody, he's kind of at a disadvantage there. It looks like he's trying to... Okay, it does look like he got it down. I don't know if he got a Petrify off instead, or if that was the Break Blade. I think that was still the Break Blade.
That was the Break Blade.
And it looks like Dry might actually try to pull up that and see if we can see what one of the random bosses, or one of the portal bosses looks like. Like we mentioned earlier, these portal bosses are completely brand new bosses that Cleartonic, the developer, actually put in here as like a second win condition. So like, if you don't want to face X-Death, or if you want a flag set that's not always facing Neo X-Death, you can actually try taking on these portal bosses, and they kind of have very specific kind of, I don't know if gimmick is the right word, but they kind of have specific gimmicks.
They have their own sort of unique set of sort of AI and behavior and the ways they deal with things. I would put many of them at least on par with, if not actually harder, than the actual Ned fight. Although, like I said earlier, that may just be sort of a unfamiliarity at this point.
Yeah, we'll have to see who it is. I know Karma in chat was saying that it's probably Rain Senshi, but it could be. I can actually go look at the name of all the other portal bosses. So we currently have 3 right now, and I believe it was set to random, so it can be Dragon Clan, Rain Senshi, or the Somber Mage. For the longest time, it was just Somber Mage. We only had 1, but recently, Cleartonic has made 2 additional ones, so we do now have 3 that can be randomized between. And he's going to get that T-Rex fight. I'm sure he's pretty happy to see the T-Rex fight here, because he's like, I'm just going to Phoenix down this thing. And you can see he went out and bought a bunch of, like, white softs and everything. So, makes quicker that work of that T-Rex.
Kind of interesting in those spots where, even though we know they're divergent seeds, they still lined up, because that was also the Pterosaurus for Dry Seed as well.
Yep, yeah, it's kind of funny how that works. So you can tell there was... It randomizes some things, but it still kept some of the same stuff in the same seed. It's funny how that worked out.
I mean, I think it's probably just coincidence, really.
Yeah, it could be. You're probably right. He runs into Sandworm here, who Sandworm could be a bit annoying because he moves pretty quickly, and he's going to bounce between these spots. Now, thankfully, he doesn't have anything that's really kind of slow. He's going to be probably using dances that hit pretty quickly. And you can see he's going to wait for it to move, too, knowing it's going to be moving pretty soon.
Yeah, Sandworm can absolutely be a just mess of a fight, depending upon your build. But yeah, with the benefit of Dance being essentially an instant cast, it does make things a little easier there.
So he's going to put up that Haste 2, which he's pretty much always going to do. Haste 2 is just too good not to use. He's going to use Aqua Ray, because that does do extra damage to the... yeah, you can see almost 6,000 damage, because he is weak to water, one of the only bosses I think that is.
Yeah, so just in general, there are quote-unquote desert enemies that are weak to water type. I don't think there's another desert-type boss. I think you're correct. I think the only boss that has that weakness is Sandworm.
So here we're going to get to see the portal boss that is going to be taken on. Meanwhile, Jedders is going to take it on, and it looks like it's the Dragon Clan. So you can see it is 3 dragons. Now, I have not actually seen this one. This is the most recent portal boss added. So I actually do not know how any of the mechanics work for these 3. But just putting up that mighty guard, or that big guard, that's pretty one always want to use. Oh, but that dragon in the back being able to cast haste, that could be nasty. Meanwhile, Jedders is going to make his way up. He's on to the Halachronia fight. And hopefully he'll remember to save this time. I know, unfortunately, he's lost some times to not saving, which I know some runners in the Worlds Collide community who are very much kind of the same way. They're like, I'm not going to save, because the time of like saving over and over again does add up. And it's kind of a very high-risk, high-reward kind of strategy there.
I have just had far too many runs where I was like, oh, I don't need to save. I should be fine. I've got this or that going on. And then I run into an unexpected boss and lose 20 minutes of progress.
I will join that club. That happens to me all the time. So, just trying to watch this Dragon Clan here, because I have no idea what these guys do.
Yeah, this is actually a new one to me as well. I usually don't go for the portal bosses. At least recently, since I've been, helping develop the race seeds and doing a bunch of testing for that.
Yeah.
I don't want to use them for that kind of stuff. When I get back to doing more casual runs, I'll probably take them on more. It's just... the last time I really did much of that, we only had Somber Mage, so...
Yeah. And see, I never even took on Somber Mage just because I was just like, oh, well, I mean, because I was always thinking of, accidentally reflects that haste off of his walled. Jedders accidentally reflects haste. So you can see, he forgot he has the wall ring on. Which says another thing, that wall ring auto-equips because it has, like, I don't know why. It's one of those that's, like, it always wants to equip that.
It's a really high priority accessory. In chat, was asked how old is this randomizer? So it actually hasn't fully reached a 1.0 release yet. We're actually on version 0.99 right now. But I want to say it's been around for a couple years at this point, been in development. I'm not sure exactly when Cleartonic first started development on it. But the it's been in development for at least a couple years that I'm aware of, and we are just coming up now on getting what the developer considers to be the 1.0 release, the sort of fully complete, feature complete version.
Yep. Yeah, it's. I think really we're starting to see this randomizer A now just because that big list of randomizers we talked about. That's how I kind of found about it. But with Final Fantasy Free Enterprise getting so popular, and now with Final Fantasy VI growing, a lot of people are starting like, oh, I wonder if there's also a randomizer for Final Fantasy V or for Final Fantasy 1. And we're really, I've said it multiple times, we're in the golden age really of randomizers right now. There's so many great randomizers out right now that I kind of have ADD with randomizers where I'm trying like, oh, I want to learn this one, because they're all so good. And it's almost getting to the point now where you got to be like, look, if you're going to race a randomizer, you kind of have to buckle down to be like, okay, I can run 2 to 3 very fast, and then I can run maybe the rest of them casually and have fun with them, but I cannot be like race quality for it. And there's just so many communities popping up. Like, one of the ones I'm interested in is Lufia 2, kind of the OG randomizer with its ancient castle mode. Like, there's a big scene out there for that as well. Game Boy Fan, the person who really does a lot of the work with Randomania, is kind of the developer of all the Dragon Warrior randomizers, and Dragon Warrior 1 has a huge community for it. So there's just so many good randomizers out there now, and I think finally we're getting to show off Final Fantasy V and kind of show, hey, this randomizer is kind of a great one as well with all the things it can do.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing we're starting to see too is even a lot of sort of official randomizer modes being incorporated into games now from the actual developers. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night has a randomizer mode in there, and I actually have a game going right now with a couple friends of mine of Civilization 6, where they added in a whole like randomize all the civics and techs in the game thing as a mode.
Who knew that you'd get a lot more replayability out of a game if every time you play it, it's entirely brand new? I mean, basically what we did is we took roguelites and we're just like, well, I'm going to apply roguelite to everything.
Absolutely.
And we see Dry is actually having a pretty good time. I don't know the health levels of the Dragon Clan, but, I mean, he's holding up pretty good against them.
Yeah, I mean, seems to be pretty solid. I mean, obviously getting that Mighty Guard off helps a lot with anything they can try and throw at you.
Meanwhile, Jedders is facing on... Oh.
Yeah, Jedders gets kind of a free fight over here.
Oh, for sure. We need more roguelites that are less difficult and more randomness and sanity. And see, that's funny because like I very much like randomizers, but I also like in racing randomizers, I also want there to be some like less randomness in my randomizers at the same time too. It's really, really weird to say, but like, look, if I'm going to be racing something, I want at least some level of consistency across things. But most of that just comes from everybody having the same seed, I guess.
A lot of it has to do with, I think, finding that balance point when you're talking like a race setting or more of a more of a speedrunner race type of setting. Then absolutely you want to have that consistency and that reliability. But as I've mentioned pretty frequently in the Career Day Discord, and even kind of joked about it even earlier today when we were talking about Seed of the Weeks, when I just really want to like let loose and have some fun, I do what I call pure chaos mode of Career Day, which is just basically stacking every single random element that the tags let you do, and just cranking all of them on, and then just seeing what insanity occurs.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I guess I'm just a very, very competitive person, so normally when I look at a randomizer, I always want to be racing it. But like there is times where like, yeah, if you're just wanting to sit down and have a fun, casual, crazy experience, yeah, I gotta imagine pure chaos can be quite the trip. Titan, I'm actually surprised. I'm hoping Jedders saved, because Titan can be pretty scary here, because he's gonna cast his Earthquake at the end, regardless if you kill him in time or not, and his party cannot survive a quake.
Yeah, especially at this kind of spot, like that Earthshaker is going to do probably near 2,000 damage.
And he's also, and we're just going to get to see it right here. I would not be surprised if you just go, oh, but that's not his Deathquake though. I think his Deathquake tends to do more damage. He's almost out of Phoenix Downs though, so I'm actually wondering if he's going to have to run out of this to go buy more Phoenix Downs.
Yeah. It's always a possibility. I don't think in Jedders Seed there he ever found like White Mage or even like any significant white ability, so I don't know that he has access to life magic.
Yeah. I think probably what he's going to be relying on to stop the white hole a lot is I think he might have ribbons on Lena and Ferris. So hopefully that will prevent a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a big advantage there. That's 50% of your team that are just going to basically invalidate that attack, which can make a huge difference. And again, with the... He has access to much the same base strategy that Dry used, and that he has the Sing ability and can, pump that speed song, and especially that hero song.
Yeah,
really
it does look like for healing, he does have White Wind, so that will do a good bit of healing. He did get the stop off on Titan as well, so he won't have to worry about that attack. And I think if he's stopped, he doesn't do his Death Quake either.
Yeah, if you can manage to take him out while he's stopped, he will not do his Revenge Earthshaker. So if Jedders can get him down before that stop wears off, that's going to be a huge advantage.
And he does have Mind Blast as well, so he is able to paralyze him consistently too. So I think he might be okay, and then he'll be able to get the good experience that's going to come out of this. I think he might kind of need, but then he's also going to get that safe spot that's going to be right there.
Alternatively, he does also have Mighty Guard, which floats everybody.
Yes, I'm surprised he hasn't put that up. I think he's just might be relying on the fact that he's got him stopped.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we'll see what happens as it approaches. It looks like he got another stop off there, so
yep, there it
this
goes.
should be all right, yeah.
So he'll probably take that save point, and then he should be going on to face Xdeath.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, Dry is still slowly willing down. He's got one of the Dragon Clan members down, so he's got 2 left. But he looks like he's taking some good damage, though. But he's got life 2. That life 2 will help out a lot. Looks like he actually did run out. Oh, so he got that to get the warp point back in. So he's running to look for Phoenix Downs, it looks like.
Yeah, that is, in many ways, almost the bigger advantage of unlocking that save spot, rather than just having the save point right before Xdeath, is it does give you that quick warp back in, so it makes it more viable to kind of run out and do a shopping run like this.
You can tell he probably forgot to write down where he got his Phoenix Downs. So that is one of the things I'll say that I encourage new runners to do, because I still do it, is definitely have a notepad open when you're running this. A, to write down the clues that you get so you remember, okay, this is on the path to the void, this isn't. But also to kind of help with, like, okay, so at this shop I know I have this really good items here, and at this shop here's my Phoenix Downs. And it helps out a lot, because there's so many different shops and everything that you could be running around going, where did I see Phoenix Downs again? Where did I see the Phoenix Downs again? So...
yeah, absolutely. That kind of stuff can be vital, because sometimes, I can tell you, the minute you think, like, oh, I got like 30 of them, that should be enough for the rest of the game, that's when the seed is going to go, oh, really now?
Yeah. Yep. Normally when I'm going into the Void, I end up buying like 20 cabins. We're going to pick up like 20 Phoenix Downs. We're stocking up.
Yeah, I mean, unless I have Samurai or Gil Toss and then therefore going to use it, I basically go and stock up on every, like, major curative I have access to, because what am I going to spend it on,
It does look like he's picking up Combine, though, so he might be going the Combine strategies as well. But
yeah, I mean, that can be a definite big boost in that Ned fight, is having the access to Combine.
Yeah, and here's like, and coming back to what we said earlier, what makes this randomizer so great is that, like, you can see he has all these different abilities and all these different job crystals. So it really becomes this, like, every run's going to feel extremely different just because your abilities and jobs are never going to be the same. But you can really start to craft your team, A, to a kind of a style that you like, but it also gives you a bit of a challenge, like, okay, well, what is the best team when you're given all of these options? Whereas sometimes, like, for Enterprise or Worlds Collide, it's just like, well, I've got 2 Ragnaroks. Well, really, there's only one kind of team I can build with that. So you kind of get to see the true kind of muscle that comes with the job class system in this game.
Well, yes, clearly the only proper answer to having 2 Ragnaroks is to get Throw.
Yeah. See, I was going to say you get the Ninja 2-hand and then you get X-Fight, but...
Nah, just throw those into something, ruin its whole day.
I know in the Worlds Collide community we have a joke that whenever you get an Excalibur, the best thing you use Excalibur for is to throw it, so...
Yeah, I mean, amusingly, it is one of the better things to do with Excalibur in this.
Yes. I'm
Because
glad you mentioned
throw,
that, though.
yeah, because throw, like many other commands, only cares about the actual listed attack of the weapon and doesn't take into account the fake Excalibur's unique property that makes it do like 2 damage.
So I want to bring that up. So for new runners, in this patch, it's not called Excalibur. It is still called Excalibur, but it's spelled incorrectly. So if you see in a shop the Excalibur that's spelled EXCAILBUR, that is the one that does like the 2 points of damage. Do not spend 10,000 gold to get this thinking it's Excalibur.
I don't know if it's been incorporated yet, but that is actually something that Clear did fix. I don't think it's on the live build, but in the next build that will actually be changed. It is now going to be Excalibur. There wasn't enough space to fit both those.
Okay. Well, at least that makes it a lot more visually easable to catch, because I know at first I was just like, oh, this is Excalibur. Oh, wait, no, it's not. The eye's in the wrong spot.
Yep.
I think Dry might have wiped on the Dragon Clan.
It looks that way. My understanding, I haven't faced them myself and I haven't heard much talk about them, but I think they are designed in such a way that as you take out individuals of them, they get more and more dangerous.
So it's kind of like a Stooges fight where you want to kind of get them all down at the same time.
Yeah, but even that can be difficult because I believe the rear dragon also has significant healing ability.
Oh, goodness. Although, we do see Jedders, so Jedders is jumping on the tree as well, so he is going to be taking on his X-Death fight. And he gets a white hole, unfortunately, right off the bat.
Yeah.
He does have Gill Toss, though.
I will say, like, in that regard, you know, we kind of talked about them a little briefly, but yeah, the portal bosses that were added are by no means any sort of slouch. Like, you know, the one I said I have the most experience against, Somber Mage, which was the first one we had. I've faced Somber Mage quite a number of times. I spent a lot of time trying to sort of figure out and develop strategies against Somber Mage, and I still say I probably have maybe a 10-15% success rate against Somber Mage.
So here we see he is going to do Dragon Power onto Lena. Jedders, that is, with the Combine ability. So he is going to be using some of the Combine magic. He still only has 3 Phoenix downs, so he's still kind of playing risky. There he is going to equip on the Aegis shield, so she can no longer be paralyzed, or not paralyzed, but you know what I mean.
Petrified.
Petrified. And he does have the magic lamp, though, so that is good. So for anybody who has not played this game, basically the magic lamp works is that each turn, each time you use it, it casts a summon, and it kind of goes down in order. So it first casts Bahamut, then it casts Leviathan, and then it will cast Odin. Now, the reason why he wants Odin here is because the Odin that comes out of the magic lamp is guaranteed to cast the True Edge and can instantly kill the back section of Neo X-Death. So you'll probably see him either use it once or twice here to get to the Odin, and then save the Odin for the second phase.
Yeah, with Time Magic up as well, he's got Haste 2 going, so even though he hasn't gotten the Speed Song started yet, he's going to get a lot of turn priority there as well.
And there you can see he used the second, so now he is on to the phase, and there's the Gill Toss. Not doing as much damage, it's only doing 2k, but I'm surprised he's not using the dance strats. I guess maybe he thought, hey, I'm going to need the life, I'm not going to be able to use dance strats. But he does have Shell, though, so he is getting that set up to prevent against the Almagest as well.
Yeah, part of the drop in damage on that Gill Toss there, I think, maybe due to having spent a lot of the cash he had to pick up a lot of these abilities.
Although now you can see it is doing 6k hit now, though, because he's used Samson Power and Dragon and the level boosting combined on him. And there's another Samson Power, so he is going to just Gill Toss his way to the end of this thing. You can see each time he does it, it's going up in damage. So now it's doing 7k as the thing, and it'll be even more damage. So it goes up by level. So he's just going to keep leveling up that Lena artificially. So he's going to do max damage to all the phases, which is a pretty... And see, this is another cool strategy you get to see here. And his Blue Mage ability, White Wind, are really providing a lot of the healing here.
Yeah, if you can go into Ned with max damage Gill Toss, it frankly makes a pretty short fight.
Yes, it does. And he's just going to, like we said, he's getting Shell up on everybody because he is going to, probably doesn't have a way to instantly kill the Almagest section. And Karma is saying if you get up to level 99, it takes 7 gill tosses. Yeah, to kill him. How much does it cost 1 damage? Unfortunately, I don't know the actual calculation for like how much gold it costs to use the gill toss.
I never remember it offhand. It is remarkably cheap.
Yes,
I remember that much.
Cheap.
I am actually going to go pull up the algorithm FAQ real quick just to see. But one of the things, like the other response to that as well is, this is the final boss. What does it matter?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty monkey-brained when it comes to formulas, so I'm just like, I don't know what it is, I just use it. So.
Looks like the gil cost for it is 50 times level times number of targets attacked.
So since you're only attacking 1 target, it's even better here.
Yeah, I mean, that'll multiply when you're going up against Neo, because it's 4 targets, but even still.
Yeah, he's probably got enough gold in between the Samson power boosting up his level. That he's just going to gill toss his way to this. And here you can just see, like, how strong gill toss is. And actually, next phase won't be 4, because remember, he does have the magic lamp, so he'll kill the back section right away. So it'll just be 3 sections.
Not only the magic lamp, he's also got the break blade up on Ferris.
Yep, and that should kill the Almagest section? Is that or does that kill the back section?
Trying to remember. It's been a while since I used that strategy. I want to say it's the bottom section, which should be Almagest, which is break susceptible.
Okay, which would be because it's also shoot.
Oh no, looks like IB is saying back left.
Okay, the magic section. Okay, well he is going on to face Ned now, so we're gonna get to see that amazing sprite come back out again. And it's funny how we put the estimate. I put the estimate for this right about 3 hours, and that's probably going to be right about where Jedders is for his seed. So you can definitely see with a good runner, and he did have a bit of rabbit holing, and he lost a lot of time for because he missed some saves, and he had to go back and do some stuff. So you can see an average seed time from more experienced player. He probably would have had this around 2:30, because I think he did lose a good bit of time due to saves. But he's still putting up a pretty solid time with all that considered.
Yeah, this is right in the realm of what we usually see, is right in that 2.5 to 3 hour time frame. But it's been a great seed. It's been a great run for both of these runners, really.
Oh, for sure. And then hopefully next week we'll be able to get two new runners. We'll talk with everybody, see if this time does work best for everybody this Thursday. Starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. So there you can see he's using the True Edge to kill the back section. It's funny because it looks like it kills everything and then he comes back. But hopefully we can try to make this a weekly thing where we come and show you guys 2 new runners or 2 of the same runners, and hopefully next time on the same seed. But just to get you more Final Fantasy V Career Day open racing. So he's going to get up Ferris with that. And here, the downside with it killing Ferris is now he's got to do the Samson power on her all over again. He's going to try to kill Flash, it looks like.
Is a bit of a setback there, but...
But there's that max damage gill toss.
Yeah, absolutely does some work.
And here Karma is saying, yeah, he only has to spend. You only have to spend 70k to kill the last 2 sections. So I'm sure he probably has more than 70k, or probably pretty close to that. So he's gonna be making quick work of this. He does need to get a shell pretty quickly up onto Ferris, or otherwise I think she might die to this Almagest. Maybe at 18k she might live through it. Yep. There's the Break Blade. So I think he should just have 2 sections left now. Yep. And he should be getting those down pretty quickly because he's already gotten 2, 4. This will be that was the 3rd one that he got off, and down goes Ferris again. For some reason, this game does not like Ferris. Like when I'm playing, it always seems to target Ferris.
I do want to note something, by the way, that happened there. It was real quick, so somebody might have missed it. Lena did, in fact, just straight up block Almagest. That is a thing that can happen.
Yeah, oh yeah, I saw that. That was, you're just like, imagine just putting up a shield, stopping the ultimate boss's attack. You're like, no, I got a shield, bro. It's okay.
It's a low chance, but it's beautiful every time it happens.
Gets off the block on the vacuum wave as well, so he's in. Jedders is in an excellent shot. Gets the haste 2 up again. He should be making pretty quick work of this. There's the Grand Cross, but Grand Cross doesn't even care about your. Oh yeah, and Dry has 2 of the dragons down. Unfortunately, I haven't been paying.
Yeah, over here down to
He's
the last
Apollo
dragon
harp.
cork. Yep.
So here you can see the power of that Apollo harp that we talked about earlier, being able to take down dragons. And down goes Neo X Death from Jedders.
Excellent. GG's, Jedders.
GG's to Jedders as well. So we'll see if I can get him in for an interview while we watch to see if Dry is actually able to take down the Dragon Clan also.
Yeah, that dragon is hitting like a truck, though.
Yes, you can see that he was not playing around when he made these bosses. But he's got that speed song up, so he's going to be taking a lot of turns. And if he keeps putting out 9,000 damage with that harp, he should be in an excellent spot. Let me see if I can get a hold of Jedders, to see if he would like to come in for an interview. Alright, let's see. So it looks like we are going to get Jedders to join us in a second. And Dry, it looks like he's in a great spot now. I'm not sure why he has Galif attacking.
Unless this dragon pulls out something really unexpected, he seems like he might have this on lock.
Yep, I would believe so as well. And we are joined by Jedders GG.
GG's.
So we did want to point out one thing. Unfortunately, it did look like you were on a different seed from everybody else, but you did an excellent job still showcasing a seed to everybody on the stream, and everybody seemed to enjoy it. So excellent run still.
Interesting.
We think it might have something to do with the spoiler log. I don't know if everybody else did it without the spoiler log, and maybe you did it with the spoiler log, and that caused the seed to derivate.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
But still, you did it. You had an excellent run. You got to really show off the power of that bard dancer combo.
Yeah. That was kind of my mainstay. I was looking for something else, but I ended up getting a lot of what I was looking for late. Never got any good spells really for like Black Mage and stuff, or and I got a lot of the White Mage spells really late.
Yeah, but boy, did you have the whole gamut of blue.
Oh yeah.
So Jedders, I asked this to Dry as well, since this is our first race that we've ever streamed on Random Mania. What are some of your favorite things about the Final Fantasy V Career Day randomizer?
Well, I think a lot of what my favorite things are is just the variety of strategies that you can come up with, in doing all of this, and just the job, all the jobs and all the skills. You can come up with several different ways to crack an egg, as opposed to certain other random, RPG randomizers where progression is a little bit more. There's still options, but it's a bit more linear in terms of feel. But this is wide open, especially with the bosses being the way that they are, they're vulnerable to a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's one of the things we've talked about multiple times. Is you really can build your own party, and like no one party feels exactly the same. You have all these different, and you kind of get to, you actually kind of have this moment where you have so many abilities, and you're just like, you start with like, okay, is this team better than the current team I have, or if I switch this out, is this going to be better for this boss or for this boss? So it really, like you said, is completely open for how you want to progress your team, and we saw that out of you. I mean, you kind of rocked that bard dancer combo most of the time, but we noticed when you got to Ted and Ned, you switched up your party drastically.
Yeah, and the reason I used the Mystic Knight was not necessarily for the sword magic, because I had sword magic 5 that I could have used on anyone, but I didn't really have much in terms of need for any particular skill. I just needed a job that has a lot of health, so that's why I picked Mystic Knight to finish it out, because of the much larger health pool than any of the other classes that I had.
Yeah. And just while we're talking, it does look like Dryalizer was actually able to take down the Dragon Clan as well. So the other seed, Jedders, was an extremely jetty seed. I mean, there was a moment where we thought Dry was going to have like a sub 2 hour seed. You definitely had a much more of an average seed. So I was glad that even though it wasn't ideal for racing, we still got to show people kind of what a more average seed looks like, as far as like, you normally don't find all 4 tablets before you're even in World 3 and things like that. So, like I said, it wasn't ideal, but it was still kind of beneficial for everybody to see, hey, that's what a jet seed looks like, but this is also what a more normal seed looks like for people. So,
yeah, and honestly, I could have done that a lot faster, but a lot of it was me just slamming my face against bosses and hoping for good luck on the sword dances. So I lost a lot of time just kind of throwing myself at bosses until I got enough sword dances. And that Antlion was hitting really hard.
Yeah, he was. That was.
Yeah, there can be some really surprising bosses when you get them in like a late spot.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the other thing we noticed is it looks like, and I don't know if this is kind of a strategy that you generally use, but it looks like there's also a few times where you maybe didn't save as many places that you might have normally would, or you generally tend to run kind of a more riskier with that. Is that something that you just kind of worth forgetting about because kind of being in a new race setting, or is that more of your strategy where you just don't save as often to go for saving that time that you would have from that?
A couple times I forgot to save, but when I was going through the void, for instance, I had 3 tents, and I didn't remember where tents were, so I didn't want to spend like 20 minutes looking through all the shops.
Yeah.
So I was just being very conservative with my tent usage, and I was just hoping that, the bosses were very kind, and I was under the impression that I was doing the same seed. So I figured, based on finish times, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe the bosses in the void are not that bad, which they really weren't, luckily. But the hardest boss was really just was Antlion. But I mean, I could have done a better setup. I could have gone Image or something, but Flash Off really helped a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that's the kind of thing I hope we'll see kind of evolve as we get more bigger racing community, more people doing this, and we start to see a lot of really good strategies develop.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm eager to see, because I think even Dry is probably one of the most knowledgeable people that plays this game. Dry has an encyclopedic knowledge of
Yeah.
all kinds of strategies and all kinds of ways to play this game, and but I'm sure that even he might learn some stuff from other people, because sometimes you just do as a different as a different person. You just use different strategies that. And when someone's watching you, watching the back or something, you're like, hey, I never thought to do that, so.
I completely agree. And that's just it. Like with this randomizer, there is so many different strategies that we could see come out of this. So that's what really has me excited for as more people join our community, what we all get to see and learn from it.
Yep. It's definitely going to be fun. And I know that a lot of the people that like WinFox and Karma, I'm familiar with those guys, and because I'm in the Zelda or Link to the Past community with them too, and pushing those times down, you see these seeds go down from 4 hours, 3.5, now down to 2, and I think it's really this environment is really stimulating people to want to finish faster, because there is joy in taking this game at a different pace, a slower pace. Like I was saying, I was talking to someone earlier this morning. They were doing a challenge of only Geomancer and Berserker, and while that may take a long time, that's another way you can challenge yourself in this randomizer, which is just the settings, and you can go for a fast one, because fast is challenging, because you gotta often deal with, maybe you're a little bit uncomfortable with what you have, but you want to finish fast, so you got to deal with it, instead of maybe going to pyramid and just searching for the jobs that you want or the items that you need, that you're most comfortable with. Or there's the longer seeds, where you just have a grueling job setup that you've given yourself just to see if you can finish.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, it's one of those things that necessity breeds innovation kind of thing. So if you put yourself in a hard seed like that, and then you come to the randomizer and like, oh, well, I've been in a situation like this with these classes before. I kind of know how I can get through this.
Yeah.
But Bog, did you have any last questions or anything else you wanted to ask of Jedders before we start to head out for the night?
No, I think just congratulations again. Thank you for taking part in our exhibition race here, and hope to see you joining in again.
Yep. This was great to get everybody together, and I hope next one we'll have.
Yep, I was going to say, I think we'll probably definitely start talking about when the next one we have of these, and see if we can possibly make this a weekly. But thank you again to our two excellent runners, Dryalizer and hxcjedders. Bog, did you have anything you wanted to say before we get out of here?
No, just again, got the link in chat there, bigbridge.studio, and our wiki link has a link to our community Discord. Come on, drop on by.
Yep, it's definitely a great community. Like Bograt said, there's the link. Again, I also want to thank Random Mania for letting us host this exhibition race on their channel tonight. If you have not seen it, it's up there right now on the stream. The Tournaments of Hope is coming up at the end of this month and beginning of February. Those are going to be multiple small person tournaments between like 4-man tournaments and 8-man tournaments for a large number of different randomizers, all raising money for a good charity. So please tune in for that. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch all these different randomizers. And also check out all the other great randomizer races that get done here on Random Mania. Thank you so much for everybody coming out tonight, and have a great evening. Bye.